Chapter 2391. That's it? I don't believe it. Yin Mietion's eyes were filled with hatred as he glared at the blood-colored sky. It was as if blood was seeping out his eyes. The son of a god who could cross the pagoda sea of flames was killed by Dugu Cheng, just like that. Yin Mietion's beloved disciple, Su Chun, and Yin Lin were still in seclusion, waiting for Su Yi's arrival. Yin Mietion's nose twitched as he glared at Dugu Cheng, who was running away. Dugu Cheng, you bastard! Why'd you have to drag Su Yi down with you? The Thunderflame Holy Temple's experts behind him had witnessed Su Yi's feats that day. Now that they saw a heaven's pride of their generation fall, they couldn't help but lower their heads and sigh in sorrow. Yun Zhongli's back was facing the crowd, but he could understand the pain in his heart. If he could, he would have exchanged his life for Su Yi's. Without Su Yi, Yun Jing would be like duckweed in the endless star field. Yun Zhongli regretted his decision when he thought of his beloved Jing, and his old friend Su Jingyuan. He wanted to scold himself for coming so late. Let's go. Yun Zhongli roared in a voice that was close to a roar. His body turned into a white light and flew away. Raging flame, an azure wave, quickly rushed into the spatial crack. Yin Mietian and Yi sneered when they saw Dugu Cheng being besieged by the Myriad Sword Alliance. You and I will fight at the Dragon God ceremony 3 months later. Yin Mietian's eyes were gloomy. Although Yi wasn't the mastermind, she was an accomplice. The 5 aristocratic families had already shed all pretenses of cordiality, so Yin Mietian didn't need to beat around the bush. On Sky Sea City's side, Su Yi was dead, so Yi was even more unscrupulous. She smiled faintly and said, I'll keep you company. I'll trample the Thunderfire Temple with my own hands. Yin Mietian spat angrily. Bah, bitch, you think you can do it? Listen to your husband's words. Yi raised her eyes coldly. The scales of victory had already tilted. Yin Mietian's words had no effect on her. Looking at Ing Wuxiu's steel-like face, Yi said softly, Go back and explain to Lien. I have a feeling that it won't end so easily. After a long while, Ing Wuxiu raised his head. His eyes were calm. Ing Wuxiu had been running the Lingbao Hall in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. He had seen a lot of people. Was Su Yi really over? Even if he was still alive, Ing Wuxiu was still unwilling to believe that such a peerless talent had fallen just like that. So what if I believe it or not? There's no way to investigate the depths of the Earth's core. Even if he's alive, can he come out? Yi shook her head. Ing Wuxiu was speechless. Yi patted Ing Wuxiu's shoulder and said softly, Wuxiu, I know you love talent. But he had provoked an existence that he could not afford to provoke. The people of Tian Yao School can't be left alive. Ing Wuxiu's eyes dimmed. He curled his lips bitterly. He did not dare to imagine the future of Sky Barbarian. Let's go. The Dragon God ceremony will be the day when Sky Barbarian falls. After that, the people of Tianlan Sea City returned to Tianlan Sea with the good news of the fall of the Myriad Sword Alliance. The whole place was in chaos. The strong wind blew the debris, and a stench of blood filled the air. Anyone who smelled it felt nauseous. The only quiet existence was Situ Muyang, who was floating in the air. He carried the last bit of hope with him as he slowly came to the endless abyss. The dark abyss had no end. The suffocating feeling of not being able to see the bottom made Situ Muyang cry. Junior Marshal Uncle. When he met Junior Marshal Uncle for the first time at the Xinjiang Gate, both of them were invincible and won the first place in the competition. After that, Su Yi's terrifying growth made him a huge obstacle in his path of cultivation. Situ Muyang cultivated with hatred, hoping to surpass Su Yi. He did not expect that he would send Su Yi into the abyss with his own hands. Patter, patter. Situ Muyang knew that Su Yi knew whether the Myriad Sword Alliance was sincere or not. Su Yi was willing to take a risk for himself and for Dugu Yuma. However, Junior Marshal Uncle had underestimated the Myriad Sword Alliance. The Myriad Sword Alliance was not going to kill Su Yi. They were going to use the Myriad Sword Alliance and Su Yi to perish together. Situ Muyang swallowed his saliva and his eyes flashed. He wanted to go down and take a look, even if it meant that he would be crushed to pieces. Situmuyong gently moved his feet. When he reached the edge of the abyss, Situmuyong's eyes flashed with the determination to die. With a shout, he spread his wings and fell into the abyss. The white-winged armor protected Situmuyong. The north wind sword intent swept past Situmuyong mercilessly. In less than half a day, Situmuyong was thrown up by the force of the earth's core. Thump! Situmuyong fell heavily on the abyss. Invisible ripples spread out and terrifying cracks appeared. Lying on the ground, Situmuyong looked up at the sky. His face was pale and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Let's try again. Situmuyong did not give up. Whether it was his trust in Su-Yi or his atonement, he felt that this was the only way he could feel better. Thump! This time, the time was even shorter. In less than half an hour, Situmuyong was thrown up, but the fall was even heavier. The royal wind battlesuit was fluttering in the wind. The light spots were like stars floating in front of Situmuyong's eyes. He reached out his hand to grab them, but a heart-wrenching pain surged up. Several of his bones were broken, and his flesh was trembling. Should he continue? This self-harming method was the only way for Situmuyong to calm himself down. He tried 3 more times, each time faster and harder than the previous one. For the last time, Situmuyong was lying in the center of the abyss. His eyes were blurry, and his eyes were bleeding. His soul and flesh felt like they were being torn apart. The pain even caused him to hallucinate. Young martial uncle, Sister Ruoshin, Sister Yuma. The congested blood was stuck in his throat. He coughed until he saw stars. His fists were already bloody and full of broken stones. Situmuyong tried to grab the images of Su-Yi and his 2 sisters in the sky, but he could not do so. Tap, tap. A hunched and haggard figure walked to Situmuyong's side. Seeing his grandson in such pain, Dugu-hen felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. Muyong, get up. I'll take you to treat your injuries. As soon as he finished speaking, a trembling voice came from Dugu-hen's throat. Situmuyong, who was stiff and powerless, did not even look at Dugu-hen and flicked his arm away. His footsteps were light as he walked into the distance. However, before he could even take 2 steps, he fell down again, falling, crawling, and falling again. Under the sorrowful gazes, Situmuyong walked away. From today onwards, I, Situmuyong, will sever all ties with the Myriad Sword Alliance. I am not related to Dugu-hen by blood. Chapter 2392. Situmuyong had cut off all his escape routes, walking towards the valley in the distance. The mountain wind was bleak, and the energy storm was mixed with a trace of bitterness. At this moment, Situmuyong's voice was still hovering in the air. It was cold, decisive, and without a trace of leeway. Even if Situmuyong's voice was incomparably weak, everyone who heard it knew that the Myriad Sword Alliance had become an eternal pain in Situmuyong's heart. From today onwards, the Myriad Sword Alliance would be a scar that Situmuyong would never mention. Elder Hen, should we bring Muyong back? With Situmuyong gone, Dugu-hen basically monopolized the power of the Dugu Sword Alliance. Should they bring Situmuyong back? Pairs of astonished eyes looked at the gradually shrinking figure in the distance. The experts stepped on Dugu-chung under their feet, and their eyes were incomparably vicious. At this moment, Dugu-hen seemed to have the whole world, but he had also lost the most precious thing. Standing in front of the crowd, the stooped Dugu-hen's mouth sank, and his old eyes drooped. His wrinkled face was indifferent, and he seemed to have become much more haggard. His gaze was fixed on the black dot in the distance as it climbed up and finally left his sight. Dugu-hen didn't say a word. He knew that there was no way he could save his grandson. The black figure had completely disappeared, and the vast Myriad Sword Mountain was only left with a whimper of the wind. Dugu-hen's nose turned red as he turned around and glared at the wounded Dugu-chung. The Myriad Sword Alliance needed him. Compared to his grandson, their foundation of 10,000 years couldn't collapse just like that. Bring this beast back, Dugu-hen said coldly as he flung his robe. Viciousness and resentment flashed through the depths of his eyes. Yes, the experts responded. Surging vitality light poured into Dugu Cheng's body. Before they could say anything, Dugu Cheng fainted like a dead dog. After this battle, the Myriad Sword Alliance's strength had been greatly reduced. Although they were still much stronger than the Sacred Mountain and the Sky Dragon sect, the Myriad Sword Alliance had lost their status as an aristocratic family with the disappearance of their experts and the Myriad Sword Mountain. It was easier said than done to restore their strength. The 10,000 years of foundation of the Myriad Sword Alliance was destroyed in a day. Any disciple of the Myriad Sword Alliance would have the heart to die. No one knew how long it would take for the Myriad Sword Alliance to rebuild their sect. The path was too long. Everything was too small compared to this matter. Even if Duga Hin wanted to save Sita Muyang, it would be too late. Muyang, I know I'm in the wrong. You'll have to walk your own path from now on. After everyone left, the biting cold wind blew Duga Hin's long robe up high. His dry eyes were red. Perhaps at this moment, Duga Hin would finally understand the value of family love. If you didn't die, I would atone for my sins in my own way. Turning his head to look at the abyss, this abyss of Sword Mountain that made countless people's hearts ache, Duga Hin finally left behind these words. As for Su Yi, Duga Hin, after going through a great change, didn't seem to want him to die like this and disappeared from where he was. Su Yi, who was 5,000 feet away, saw Lu Ruashi overdraft her life essence with his own eyes. At that moment, Su Yi felt like his heart was being bitten by thousands of ants. The heart-wrenching pain almost made Su Yi collapse. His eyes were wide open and his eyes were misty with tears. Su Yi had never thought that there would be a day when he would cry so miserably and painfully. When Duga Yuma hooked Lu Ruashi into the Myriad Sword Mountain, the entire mountain seemed to have collapsed. The fierce energy of heaven and earth surged into Su Yi's body. The entire mountain sank rapidly. The outside world was completely cut off. The mountain was sealed, and the transparent silver wall turned into darkness. The world was dark. Su Yi could only see two rays of light in the distance. The seven-colored light was attached to the silver sword tip. Lu Ruashi and Duga Yuma were falling like meteorites. Ruashi Yuma, Su Yi shouted frantically, but he didn't get any response. Su Yi's heart tightened. He glanced at Shangguan Tianshan, who was pierced by the chains. The 12 chains connected to the mountain trembled violently. Because of the collapse of the mountain, the chains also began to tremble violently. Bang! 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 The huge chains shook violently. The murderous aura was like a heavenly reward. Su Yi was shocked. On one side was Tianshan. On the other side was Ruashi and Umo. But if this continued, the chains would break and the unconscious Shangguan Tianshan would die. Su Yi looked around. He felt like his heart was in a pot of oil. Lu Ruashi and Duga Yuma were unconscious in the sky. He was the only one awake in the huge mountain. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Whoosh! Whoosh! Su Yi's figure flew into the air, his face solemn. Gritting his teeth, he turned into a ball of fire and rushed to Shangguan Tianshan's side. All of a sudden, a soul-shaking aura burst out from Su Yi's body. The ancient bell rang, and the chaos essence ancient bell's ferocious aura enveloped Su Yi and Shangguan Tianshan. Mysterious runes circled around his body. He looked up at the sky. The light was shaking and sinking at a terrifying speed. Duga Yuma and Lu Ruashi still didn't respond. Su Yi panicked. He immediately thought of Tunten, who was hiding in Lu Ruashi's body. He had asked Tunten to protect Lu Ruashi. Lu Ruashi had been on the peak of the mountain. Although she wasn't in danger, why wouldn't Tunten come out? Tunten, Su Yi roared. His eyes were solemn. Rolling heavenly aura surged out from the dark underground. The wind howled and the heaven and earth trembled. Rolling heavenly aura surged out from Su Yi's body. A sharp aura from his brows was searching for traces of Tunten. Su Yi, who had been connected to Tunten, suddenly felt that Tunten had fainted. Could it be that the rainbow egg's energy had restrained Tunton? Tunton, wake up! Tunton, wake up! Seeing the two rays of light getting closer and closer, a dazzling aura gushed out from between Su Yi's eyebrows amidst the violent wind. The rolling, demonic aura of the Origin Supreme technique rushed towards the two rays of light. Boom! Su Yi circulated the primordial ancient bell while releasing the primordial supreme art. His forehead was covered in sweat, and his heart was already trembling to the extreme. At this moment, Su Yi couldn't wait for Tunton to wake up. When Su Yi saw the rainbow light descending like lightning, Su Yi's vision darkened. A black radiance enveloped the rainbow light. Bang, bang. At the crucial moment, Tunton finally woke up. Su Yi shouted in joy, "Tunton, you're awake." In the next second, Su Yi's expression changed again. Tunton, who had enveloped Lu Ruashi and Dugyuma, was like an inflated black ball. Its body was expanding. Chapter 2393. Master, I feel like my soul is going to explode from the pressure. What kind of energy is this? The pressure is too great. Tunton, who had just woken up, felt that something was amiss and shouted frantically. In the sky, it was as if a meteorite was falling. The pressure in the air also increased abruptly. If there was someone with a lower cultivation level, their internal organs would immediately explode from the pressure. Dong! Like a falling star, Tunton let out an angry roar in the air. Her body twisted and landed on the chain, rolling towards Su Yi like a rolling ball. "Master, be careful!" Tunton roared. Her voice was like a spring that had collapsed. Seeing the huge Tunton rolling down the chain, if she hit the primordial ancient bell, not only would he be injured, Tunton and Roashiyumal would also be seriously injured. Gulu Gulu! The huge Tunton's body was still rapidly expanding under such high pressure. At the same time, as the speed of her fall increased, the entire mountain started to shake. Under such pressure, Su Yi, who was standing in the middle of the chain, could feel that the chain could not withstand such a violent impact. He could not help but gasp. This terrifying pressure was a huge threat to Su Yi and everyone else present. Suddenly, Su Yi took a deep breath and suddenly thought of the space-cracking jade in his arms. Since it was unavoidable, he would let Tunton go through with it. I have no choice but to take a gamble. It would be best if I could teleport out. Su Yi's lips curled. He took out the space-cracking jade and formed a hand seal. Immediately, a bright light burst out and aimed the light from the space-cracking jade at Tunton. "Bear with it, Tunton. Just one moment will do." Su Yi shouted at the top of his lungs as he looked at Tunton, who was rushing towards him like a meteorite. In the blink of an eye, Su Yi's hand seal was completed. Suddenly, a destructive force rushed towards the rolling Tunton. Bang, bang. Under the terrifying force, the wind and waves in the void were unparalleled. The demon god battlesuit on Su Yi's body rustled in the wind. His flesh began to crack, and blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes and nostrils. The mysterious runes glowed brightly as they rushed out and enveloped Tunton perfectly. Tunton's body dissipated and the heavy pressure on the chains disappeared instantly. Boom! The world fell silent, and everything disappeared in an instant. Have they been teleported out? Su Yi's eyes moved slightly as he scanned his surroundings. At this moment, a huge pressure came pressing down once again. Tunton's voice came from above his head once more. It turned out that Tunton had disappeared from the chains and fallen down from another spatial crack. "Master, save me!" Tunton, who was unable to control itself, roared wildly. Its round body had nowhere to borrow strength, making it difficult to handle. "Damn it! I can't even get out of the space-rending jade." Seeing Tunton falling down again, although Tunton was trying its best to control itself, its speed was still increasing. The hurricane expanded and the wind blew violently. Su Yi bellowed and his eyes darkened. Arrogance suddenly emerged from his forehead. He stomped his foot on the ground and no longer stood on the chains. His body charged up proudly as he said angrily, "I don't believe it. It's not that easy to die. Tunton, get ready. Tense up your entire body." "All right, Tunnan took a deep breath. Its dark features were almost frowning together. Its super strong aura of a ninth-tier demon domain realm cultivator gathered at one point. Bang bang. Flames broke through the sky, and the mighty aura could destroy heaven and earth. It was like the end of the world. Instantly, the spatial ripples shook again. Oh, binding dragon, heavenly wind boundary. Golden dragon, sky-piercing finger. Rising wind, 100 transformation steps. Flying high in the sky, Su Yi's body was crushed above the void. Strong winds burst out from his body and shot into the sky. Immediately, 3 kinds of martial techniques that could tear open spatial rifts were executed by Su Yi. The heaven and earth trembled and the mountains roared. In a vast dark space, Su Yi's body created hundreds of illusions in the void. With the speed of lightning, he opened spatial rifts around Tuntin in an attempt to slow down Tuntin's fall. Waves of indescribable destructive energy poured out. Su Yi's body started to become blurry as the spatial rifts formed. However, Su Yi was still persevering. The corner of his mouth slowly lifted. Sweat poured down his back, and the veins on his thick red neck were exposed. His meridians were like green worms. Peepa. Very quickly, Su Yi's body started to explode. The pressure that had risen to 7,000 feet directly shattered Su Yi's skin layer by layer. The collapse of his body and the rebellion of his soul couldn't stop Su Yi from persevering. After Su Yi used the last binding dragon heavenly wind boundary, Tuntin finally rolled into the primordial chaos ancient bell like a round glass bead. Bam! After returning to the primordial chaos ancient bell, the destructive pressure finally disappeared. Su Yi knelt on the high platform in the center of the chains. Mouthful after mouthful of blood spurted out. His body was like mottled tree bark. He looked miserable and hideous as blood flowed out incessantly. What kind of terrifying destructive force was this? Not even Su Yi, a demonic paragon, could stand up to it. It should be noted that this place had only risen to 7,000 feet. If it really rose to 10,000 feet, then what would it mean when they reached the depths of the Earth's core? Ruashi, UMO. Su Yi hurriedly spat out the blood in his mouth. His mind was filled with the thought of waking Ruashi and UMO up. He supported himself on the ground with both hands and quickly crawled to Ruashi's side. UMO, who was lying on the side, had already fainted. Tuntin, who had transformed back into her human form, had a weak aura. Under such a terrifying pressure, Tuntin, who was at the 9th stage of the demon domain and had been directly impacted by the explosion of the rainbow glass egg, was covered in wounds and had a weak aura. Lei Yun's eyes were filled with fatigue. Tuntin glanced at Su Yi and fainted completely. She couldn't even speak. At this moment, the entire place was silent. It was so quiet that only Su Yi's heavy breathing could be heard. Ruashi, Ruashi, I'm Su Yi. I'm here. Look at me. Su Yi's eyes were red as he hugged Lu Ruashi, who was barely breathing, in his arms. He was so anxious that he was about to go crazy. Plop, plop. At this moment, the beating rainbow glass egg on Lu Ruashi's left chest was shining brightly. However, as Lu Ruashi's breathing slowed down, the rainbow glass egg dimmed at a visible rate. Su Yi, whose hands were covered in blood, held Lu Ruashi tightly in his trembling arms. At this moment, the pain in his body was nothing to him. However, Su Yi absolutely could not accept watching Lu Ruashi die right in front of him. I can save you, Ruashi. Hang in there. Hang in there. Su Yi, who was in a frenzy, roared. His body was agitated again, as if fresh liquid was squeezed out from a withered tree. He raised his head abruptly and shouted with blood flowing out of his mouth. Chapter 2394. Why? Is there any way to save my Ruashi? Su Yi's roar was like the roar of a lion in the forest. His voice split the clouds and pierced through the rocks. Su Yi's heart was filled with regret and panic. He rummaged through the dragon ancestor's medicine manual in his mind, but he couldn't save the rainbow glass egg. There is only a brief introduction to the rainbow glass egg in the Dragon Clan's medicine manual. Such a precious rainbow glass egg had lost its vitality. When the world could save it. Ruashi, wake up! Ruashi! Seeing Ruashi's aura weakening, the corner of Su Yi's mouth sank. Large teardrops fell on Ruashi's cheeks. Immediately, a dazzling light spread out from Su Yi's body. No one knew where Su Yi's vitality came from, but the energy surged wildly into the air. Origin Supreme Technique, Tianyuan Ancient Scripture, Yuqian Palace, and powerful energy of heaven and earth entered Ruashi's body like a cardiac stimulant. Desperate times called for desperate measures, but it still couldn't stop her from weakening. Suddenly, a voice came from beside him. It was Dugu Yuma, who had awakened from her coma. She sat up slowly. Her voice seemed to have a magical power that made Su Yi raise his head immediately. Su Yi's eyes were swollen, and he was in a daze. He could only see stars in front of him. Su Yi struggled to support his body and try to wake himself up. But from his cells to his flesh, blood, bones, and meridians, everything was telling him to fall asleep. Yuma. Su Yi couldn't suppress the fear in his heart. He tried to touch the figure in the light. In an instant, Su Yi's hand fell to the ground. Su Yi, who had lost all his strength, fell to the ground, unconscious. Silence and disillusionment. Inside the ancient bell, the chains floated. The spatial storm outside hit the ancient bell, producing terrifying sounds that made one's hair stand on end. Dugyuma, who had woken up from his coma, looked at the person he loved lying on the ground. His blue eyes were filled with sorrow. Dugyuma was the only one who was awake now. This was the Sword Mountain that Dugyuma had worshipped as a sacred mountain since he was young. But now, his beloved and sister were trapped here. Dugyuma walked to Lu Ruashi, bent down, and slowly lifted her pale face. Looking at her beautiful face, Dugyuma smiled bitterly. Before the sword-shaped mountain gate, when Ruashi released the rainbow glass egg's power, she told him to take good care of Su Yi. Silly girl, why are you as impulsive as that guy? Dugyuma gently stroked Ruashi's face with his trembling fingers. It was as if he was looking at his own sister. As Dugyuma looked down, he saw the mystical seven-colored glass egg. It was glowing and had an ancient and vast presence in the seven-colored flowing light. This was the first time Dugyuma saw Ruashi's heart up close. The slow-beating blood vessels and nerves could be seen through her clothes. Staring at it, Dugyuma's expression became more painful. You used your life to save Su Yi, but I used my hard-earned trust to push Su Yi into the sea of fire. Dugyuma smiled and looked at Su Yi and Ruashi. At this moment, there was no one around. Dugyuma's blue eyes revealed a trace of envy. Ruashi, I envy you. Do you know that? Holding Ruashi's right hand, Dugyuma's eyelashes fluttered. A drop of tear floated in the darkness. I never thought that I would fall in love with the same man as the others, but this is it. We all love that guy. I envy you for being his childhood friend. I envy Sister Goddess for being his pillar of support. I also envy Sister Cat Demon for being able to sleep with him. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with tears. Dugyuma lowered her head and pursed her lips. But only me. Why am I the only one who met him so late? Why did I have to leave you guys so early? Tears poured down like rain. Dugyuma couldn't control her emotions. The more she cried, the more uncomfortable she felt. Tears flowed down her cheeks silently. Su Yi, I hate you. Dugyuma raised his head and looked at Su Yi, who had fainted. He let out a suppressed sigh, and a sadness that came from the depths of his soul surged out. Why is it you? Why did you make me open my eyes? You gave me happiness, but you made me suffer more unbearable pain. Dugyuma's eyes turned even more blue as he spoke. His desperate eyes emitted an extreme blue light, and an invisible energy passed through space and fixed on Su Yi. I want to look at you like this. Su Yi, I like you. If there's a next life, you must remember to find me early. Dugyuma flicked away the tears at the corner of her eyes. She stared at the sleeping Ruashi without any emotion. Silly girl, It's your turn to take care of Sue E in the future. Don't be so impulsive next time. If you die, you won't want to live anymore. Dugayuma gently scratched Ruashi's nose. In the next second, two majestic lights shot out from her eyes. Ugh! In the darkness, Dugayuma hugged Ruashi and shed her last tear. Then, an ice crystal pattern of crescent moons appeared between her eyebrows. At this moment, Dugayuma seemed to have returned to her childhood. Master, why didn't you let me open my eyes? The young Dugayuma waved her chubby body and stretched out her hands, looking for her master. Ah! In the sky, the sage-like Dugu, Xie, narrowed his eyes. His eyes shone with a bright light as he said softly, "Because your eyes are the purest of all. This world is too dirty. There are too many people who want this pair of eyes." Dugayuma flipped her two ponytails and complained, "But I can't always be blind. The sword art is connected to the spirit, and the heart moves at will. Only with the heart of nirvana can one cleanse the dusty, great Tao." Yuma, if you find the one who can protect you for the rest of your life, or the one who deserves you to open your eyes for him, then open your eyes. But you have to remember, that person's life is your life, and also your fortune. It's up to you how you want to deal with him. Chapter 2395. Duguxia looked at Dugayuma with a complicated expression. The airflow under his feet soared into the sky and spun around Dugayuma's head. Dugayuma stood on the ground and was illuminated by the setting sun. Her long eyelashes fluttered gently, and her red face was filled with questions. As the sword chief flew away, Dugayuma could feel a glimmer of hope even with her eyes closed. "Will I meet such a person?" Dugayuma faintly said a sentence, and her small face swayed with a pink color. At this moment, the scene was pulled back to the 1,000 feet Sword Mountain. The surrounding energy was filled with cold energy, and the rocks on the ground were swaying like water. The translucent light patterns flowed around Dugayuma's body, and it was extremely profound. Dugayuma's fair skin became more and more translucent, like a piece of paper. Whoosh whoosh, the light that shot out from her eyes was dazzling and gradually condensed into a blue crystal airflow. It then rose into the sky and set off a fierce whirlwind above her head. A meek yet majestic aura poured out like the end of the world, enveloping Su Yi, Lu Ruashi, Shangwan Tianxun, and Tunten. The blue light that filled the sky intertwined with the primordial chaos ancient bell, as if the divine light of the 9 heavens was descending. Finally, the countless tiny specks of light above his head gradually converged into 2 white crescent moons. Rumble! The crescent moons began to spin faster, and at the same time, a terrifying scene appeared. The 2 crescent moons began to overlap in the sky, and the dazzling light shone on the world. The light within the ancient bell was dazzling. What followed was a refreshing feeling of life and the supreme majesty of the divine light. The pressure in the air also began to decrease because of this magical light. Dugayuma had already thought of risking his life in front of the sword-shaped mountain gate. However, Lu Ruashi was faster and there was no one around. Dugayuma's body was covered in dazzling blue light. Under the cover of the light, Dugayuma's body was noble and holy as if a god was purifying the world. At this moment, the crescent moons completely overlapped above her head. Suddenly, heavenly thunder rumbled. The sharp and clear sound extended outwards, and a wave of hope descended upon the world. The crescent moon shattered, and light and shadow swept outwards, sweeping through heaven and earth. Su Yi, Dugayuma, Shangwan Tianxun, and Tunten were all in the midst of this divine light of life. Bathed in divine light, it was warm and peaceful. In the deep sky, light arcs were moving. Dugayuma let out a slight moan of pain from his throat, and his voice slowly drifted into the sky. "Master, I've finally found the person you were talking about. In this world, there are things that I am reluctant to part with." Boom! The cold moonlight shone on the ground, and everything was renewed. The mysterious patterns on the chaos ancient bell also flickered. Dugi Yuma's face was as calm as snow. As her voice faded, Yuma's body became more and more transparent, like a thin layer of gauze. The light in her blue crystal twin moon eyes also began to turn serious. At this moment, she found it difficult to speak. In the cold and distant white light, Dugi-Yuma sat beside Su-Yi and Lu Ruashi. Her beautiful eyes moved slightly, and her face was calm as she looked at Su-Yi greedily. The wind in the sky was exceptionally lonely, and the light and shadow seemed to be from yesterday. During the Tianfeng battle, they met for the first time and were watched by millions of people. In the Gu Demon Forest, they risked their lives and fell in love with each other for the second time. Dugi-Yuma smiled as she recalled those scenes in her mind. Her smile was as bright as fireworks. At this moment, she really wanted to talk to her sweetheart in front of her. The moon in her eyes was the light above her head, and the person in front of her was her sweetheart. Su-Yi, I like you so much. Before she could finish her sentence, her delicate face suddenly froze. A light blue light came out of Dugi-Yuma's forehead and turned into a cloud. The cloud rose to the sky until it drifted between the crescent moon, filling the gap between the crescent moon and the emptiness in Dugi-Yuma's heart. At the moment when the sky was full, Dugi-Yuma's words stopped at the word like. She really wanted to stay and hug this man. The moonlight on the path was the only time they could be alone, and it also became their swan song. There were so many beautiful things in the world, and her love for Su-Yi was still so strong. Dugi-Yuma didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave the bright life. At the moment when Ing Hong's lips curled up, an even brighter light shot up to the sky. Dugi-Yuma's transparent body was like a broken tile, and she floated in the air. The light scattered between heaven and earth. Dugi-Yuma's delicate body turned into countless light spots and returned to the crescent moon. The light was dazzling, and it was like a miracle. In a split second, endless heavenly power spread between heaven and earth. Su-Yi's skin was healing rapidly, and the broken wounds were glowing with blue light. The blood stopped flowing instantly. On the other hand, the light spots on Lu Ruashi's colorful egg flickered slowly, and the light blue blood vessels and cells were full of vitality again. The colorful light overflowed on the heart, and it shone in the sky. The outline of the heart gradually disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Time passed slowly. The light disappeared into the darkness. At this moment, the 12 chains on Shangwan Tianqian's body broke. With a bang, he fell to the ground heavily. Tuntin, who was beside him, fell into a deep sleep with its black belly open. The whole place was quiet, and only the crisp sound of the bell could be heard. Drowsy and confused, Su-Yi's spiritual sea was clear after bathing in the divine light. In his consciousness, Su-Yi could feel that Dugi-Yuma was flying away in the blurry light. Yuma, it's over. Where are you going? In the vast space, Su-Yi stared at the pair of breathtaking blue eyes. He was full of doubts and howled. There was no response for a long time. Su-Yi wanted to get up, but he found that his hands and feet were tied to a tree. After a long time, a soft call came from afar. Take good care of Ruashi. If you bully her, I'll come back and beat you up. Hearing this, Su-Yi's entire body was covered in sweat. His pores opened and his eyes widened as he stared into the distance. At this moment, there was more and more white light in the surroundings. It rushed into his nose, and he could not breathe. In the dreamland, Su-Yi struggled crazily. Subconsciously, he felt that Dugi-Yuma was no longer there. His heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped to his throat. Bang! The moment Su-Yi broke free from the ropes, he sat up from the ground. Around him, the dim light of the ancient bell shone. Su-Yi found that he was still in the Sword Mountain. Lu Ruashi fell asleep peacefully. Her breathing gradually stabilized. She let out a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off her forehead. Suddenly, Su-Yi felt like he was electrocuted. He looked around and saw Shangwan Tianqian and Tuntin sleeping soundly. He had searched everywhere, but Dugi-Yuma was missing. Chapter 2396. Huff. He felt like his throat was being gripped tightly by someone. Looking at the scattered stars in the sky, he realized that the dream was real. Dugayuma seemed to have really left this beautiful world for him and Ruashi. Yuma, he choked and groaned, thinking of the pair of captivating blue eyes in the dream. He suddenly felt like his internal organs were squeezed together. A heart-wrenching feeling of vomiting surged in his heart. Beside him, Lu Ruashi, Shangwan Tianshan, and Tuntin were sleeping quietly. He was alone in this dark space, enduring this unbearable pain. Why? Why are you so stupid? Su Yi's tears flowed endlessly like a broken dam. Su Yi's fingers were deeply embedded in the cracks of the black soil. All 10 of his fingers were broken, but Yi did not feel any pain. Resentment filled his heart. Yi kept shaking his head, unwilling to accept this fact. Looking at the scattered stars in the sky, Yi felt like a knife was twisting in his heart. Finally, he forced himself to accept this fact. She had just expressed her feelings for Dugayuma. How could such a pure and holy girl leave just like that? Swaying, Yi stood up as if he had lost his mind. Looking at the scattered stars in the sky, Yi felt that Dugayuma's unique fragrance still lingered, but the beauty was gone. Looking at the broken chains on the ground, Lu Ruashi and Tuntin, who were breathing calmly, and the wounds on his body had already healed. Although he was in the primordial ancient bell, the pressure of 7,000 feet had decreased. It was even lower than the original 5,000 feet. This was all thanks to Dugayuma. He was very grateful. Lu Ruashi didn't hesitate to use the rainbow egg's energy to save him, and Dugayuma risked his life to save him. A kind of bone-piercing coldness made Yi tremble all over. He was like a person standing in a world of ice and snow, without any perception or spiritual sense. It was as if everything had become dull and tasteless. She had passed away, and Yi didn't know if the thing he had been pursuing still existed. In his mind, the tree-lined path, the dome, the moonlight, the two of them, countless scenes from yesterday tormented his soul like a nightmare. In the darkness, only Yi was awake. This kind of loneliness was tormenting Yi to the point of suffocation. Dugayuma's departure made Yi regret for the first time. In the past, he could do whatever he wanted and was omnipotent. Since he had transmigrated from Earth, he thought that he could do whatever he wanted with the primordial chaos supreme technique. Being alone, even if he was in danger, Yi would never be afraid. He believed that he would always be able to turn the tables around like a lone hero. This time, he had really lost his love. This kind of heart-wrenching feeling made Yi regret not giving Dugayuma a hug earlier. Even if it was to give this poor girl a strong warmth, it was what she needed, and he wanted to give it to her. Time flew, and it was already dusk. The last time I looked back at the small courtyard was actually a farewell. Dugayuma had once told Yi that she could wait. She could wait for Yi to cross the sea and come to pick her up to tread on the boundless light. At this moment, Yi's heart suddenly tightened. A mouthful of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His bloodshot eyes looked like a poor person without the will to live, only endless drowsiness. Because Yi couldn't wait any longer. This kind of pain made Yi feel like he was falling into the abyss. Flame? Sore mountain? In Yi's eyes, this was not painful. His life was not up to the heavens. That was Yi's pride. However, Dugayuma's life was up to him, and she had passed away early. Biting his lips, Yi used all the cruel methods he could think of. Sitting alone at the edge of the platform, Yi's eyes were dull as he stared at the 2 moons that were still faintly visible on the ceiling. Yuma, can you come back? As he spoke, Yi's nose turned sour. He hammered his head hard like a rubber bucket. Yi's head was about to explode. Pain. A heart-piercing pain. A heart-tearing pain. Take good care of Ruashi. If you bully her, I'll come back and beat you. Dugayuma said from afar. It was so touching. However, Yi couldn't help but cry when he thought that he would never hear it again. Yi had survived a mountain of blades and a sea of flames. He was the king of sky prides to outsiders. However, he was willing to be a child in front of his beloved. I don't want to bully anyone. Yuma, can you come back? As he spoke, he buried his head between his knees. The slight shaking in the darkness was the ultimate pain for this 20-year-old man. In just a few minutes, he had cried all the tears of his previous life, this life, and the next life. However, there was still no response from the space. Blue crystal double moon eyes, the most precious treasure in the human world. Yuma was the only one who had appeared in 1,000 years. When she disappeared, it turned into eternity. Master, behind him, Tunten and Shangwan Tianchen were the first to wake up. They looked at who was on the high platform, and walked over quietly. Shangwan Tianchen was heavily injured, and his footsteps were weak. Under Tunten's care, he managed to support himself and said, "Sorry for the trouble, Yi." Pausing for a moment, Yi's head was still buried in his knees. He sniffled and turned his head. His red eyes were filled with solemnity as he replied mechanically, "It's all right. You're too heavily injured. I'll give you a few more bottles of spiritual liquid later. Take care of yourself." Yi stood up and quickly landed beside Lu Ruashi without saying a word. "What's wrong with Yi?" Shangwan Tianchen frowned and asked in a low voice. Tunten shook her head. However, she had a bad feeling when she saw the condensed black and white double moon on the dome. Something big might have happened. As for what happened, Tunten didn't dare to say anything after seeing Yi's devastated look. Whoosh whoosh, the two bottles of spirit liquid shot toward Shangwan Tianchen and Tunten like arrows before stopping steadily. Shangwan Tianchen looked at the shards of the chains that had fallen to the ground. Shangwan Tianchen faintly sensed something when he was unconscious. He said faintly, "This is blue crystal double moon eyes." At this moment, Yi's voice was still trembling. He said seriously, "Cultivate well and see how we can get out. I'll go treat Ruashi." "Yes, master." Tunten gave Shangwan Tianchen a look and didn't say anything else. Immediately, the two of them supported each other to the other side of the high platform. Chapter 2397. Brother Stone, can you please tell us what happened? Shangwan Tianchen looked at Tunten. Tunten had a pretty good guess about Yuma's death. She frowned and said to Shangwan Tianchen, "Let's go. Sai, you have to tell us how you were captured. It's all because of you that we risked our lives." The two of them left. The ancient bell continued to rumble with wind and thunder. It was completely peaceful. He looked at Lu Ruashi, wiped his bloodstained hands on his body, and stroked Lu Ruashi's hair. Lu Ruashi was kind by nature. If she knew that Yuma had died for her, she would definitely die. "How can I lie to you? I can't even lie to myself." At this moment, Yi couldn't even smile bitterly. His heart was still throbbing with pain, as if it was bleeding. Yi took a deep breath and helped Lu Ruashi up. Exchanging a life for a life. The force of nature of the blue crystal double moon eyes offset the life essence of the rainbow egg. Although Lu Ruashi was still unconscious and weak, she was basically fine. He couldn't let Yuma's kindness go to waste. He couldn't let anything happen to Lu Ruashi. This was also his way of remembering Yuma. After wiping her tears, He let out a sigh of relief. He shook his head gently and started to circulate the Origin Supreme technique. Huff, huff. He put away the pain in his heart, held his breath, and started to treat Lu Ruashi's injuries. Tears still flowed from the corners of her eyes. Above the firmament, arcs of light flowed. Time seemed to have lost its meaning in the endless depths of the Earth's core. At this moment, he was concentrating on circulating his aura, treating Lu Ruashi with a terrifying energy. Between Yi's eyebrows, a bright golden-red flame pattern flashed. Demonic chi billowed, constantly spreading around Yi's body until it reached the light pillar in the sky and disappeared. Dazzling light flickered. No one knew how much pain Yi was feeling in his heart. The more he healed, the more it showed how much Yi loved Yuma. If he had a choice, Su-yi wished that they had never come to the Myriad Sword Alliance. As the light dimmed, a faint seven-colored stream of light once again enveloped the world around Lu Ruashi. The divine light was dazzling and surging. In less than a second, the rainbow light drew an arc in the sky before returning to Lu Ruashi's heart. Bang! Heaven and earth shook as the light of fireworks illuminated the dark mountain. Lu Ruashi's eyelashes trembled slightly as she looked at the unfamiliar surroundings with her deep, light brown eyes. Hiss! The pain in her head caused Lu Ruashi to lean back and fall into Su-yi's arms. Su-yi hugged Lu Ruashi and forced a smile. "You're awake?" Lu Ruashi was overjoyed to see Su-yi alive and well. Tears welled up in her eyes as she was in disbelief. "Su-yi, is it really you?" Lu Ruashi's nose was red as she turned around and hugged Su-yi tightly. She sobbed softly and said, "I thought I would never see you again. Silly girl, how could I die so easily after how you treated me?" Su-yi's voice was like water as he gently caressed Lu Ruashi's ears. Lu Ruashi nodded and suddenly pulled away to look at Su-yi. She lowered her head to look at herself and said, "How did I get in? I only remember that I was anxious when I saw you trapped. Then my heart ached so much that it felt like it was burning." Su-yi hugged Lu Ruashi again and rested his head on her shoulder. He said softly, "The heavens knew that you couldn't bear to part with me, so they stimulated your potential and let you in." Lu Ruashi was skeptical. She frowned and said, "Is that really the case?" "Ruashi, I want to tell you something. You have to be prepared." Su-yi choked with sobs as tears streamed down from the corner of his eyes and fell on Lu Ruashi's shoulder. Lu Ruashi's heart was warmed by Su-yi's hug. She didn't care where she was anymore. "Say it. I'll listen to whatever you say." Lu Ruashi pursed her lips and smiled gently. After a long while, Su-yi still couldn't say those words. Su-yi didn't want to admit that Dugayuma had left him. "You don't do stupid things for me anymore. If you die, I don't want to live anymore." Lu Ruashi suddenly covered Su-yi's mouth. Their cherry lips touched, and a warm feeling was transmitted to Su-yi's heart. Lu Ruashi's crystal-clear eyes were filled with Su-yi. She opened her eyes slightly and looked at her sweetheart. Lu Ruashi said faintly, "What death? I won't do it again." Su-yi was a little hesitant. "All right, why are you crying? You don't look like a hero to me. Only I'm allowed to cry in the future." Lu Ruashi smiled sweetly. Su-yi immediately wiped away his tears. He smiled and said, "You're not allowed to cry either. If anyone dares to provoke my wife, I'll make sure that they'll suffer a fate worse than death. I'll make sure that they won't be able to see the sun in their next life." His ferocious look made Lu Ruashi laugh. Lu Ruashi kissed Su-yi's forehead again and said leisurely, "That's my Su-yi." Lu Ruashi looked around and frowned. "Su-yi, didn't Sister Yuma come in? I remember I pulled her in." Su-yi's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said no. She didn't come in. She was stopped by Dugahen. "You know that the Myriad Sword Alliance won't give up on the Sword Immortal's disciple." "I see." Lu Ruashi stood up and wrapped her arms around Su-yi's shoulders. She looked around and said, "Luckily, she didn't come in. I'll feel bad if Sister Yuma stays here." "Master." The rainbow light had attracted Tunten and Shangwan Tianqian's attention. Tunten only came up to them when the two of them stood up. "Tunten." Lu Ruashi pretended to be unhappy when she saw the round-headed Tunten running over. "You little rock, have you been with me all this time?" Tunten was embarrassed. It looked at Su-yi with its blue eyes as if to say that it was Su-yi's idea. "Don't blame him. I was worried about you. That's why I asked it to protect you." Tunten nodded and explained, "But sister-in-law, you're really amazing. You even knocked me out when you unleashed your potential. Only the two of you would scare me every day." Lu Ruashi smiled. She looked at Shangwan Tianqian and said softly, "Uncle Tianqian, you're finally out. I'm so happy that you're fine." Shangwan Tianqian moved his shoulders and looked at Lu Ruashi with a smile. "It's all thanks to Su-yi." Chapter 2398. Su-yi took a deep breath. The two moons were still hovering above his head as he softly asked, "How's your inspection going?" Shangguan Tianshan and Tunten smiled bitterly at each other. They told Su-Yi that the 5,000 feet they were at should be at the original 7,000 feet depth. Although the speed of their descent was extremely slow, they did not know how long it would last. Tunten naturally did not explain the reason. As for the way out, Tunten scratched her head helplessly. "Even the two of you can't find a way." Sui frowned as loneliness filled his eyes. If a third-layer Yuan domain expert and a ninth-layer demon domain expert were unable to find a way out of the 10,000 feet soar mountain, it would be difficult to get out. "Master, don't worry. We will think of another way. We will definitely be able to get out." Tunten looked at Su-Yi's despondent appearance. The two moons hovered above their heads as a faint white light illuminated the world. Tunten immediately signaled to Shangguan Tianshan with her eyes. Shangguan Tianshan acknowledged before his gaze landed on Su-Yi. He nodded and said, "Su-Yi, we will definitely be able to get out. However, this 10,000 feet soar mountain has always been mysterious. It will take some time." Suddenly, Su-Yi's eyes turned red. A low roar erupted from his throat, as if he was hysterical. He said in a low voice, "I will think of a way myself." After speaking, Su-Yi walked to the other side of the high platform. As he passed by the two moons, Su-Yi's face tightened as sadness filled the corners of his eyes. He raised his head and walked to the edge of the primordial ancient bell. Bang, bang. The wind was biting cold as the dark sword wind constantly battered the primordial ancient bell. The sound of metal chimes resounded through the clouds. Soon after, they struck the primordial ancient bell and left a deep mark before disappearing. In the darkness, a violent force swept out as energy undulations frantically rippled. Looking at the black space outside, it quickly became distorted under the terrifying collision of energy. The hidden space ripples could not withstand the destructive energy and exploded. "I can't stay here any longer. Draconis, I'm going to kill you." Clenching his fists, Su-Yi's ferocious eyes were like an eagle's as he stared at the endless black space. Summoning the blood demon, slaying God sword, an extreme power of destruction exploded around him. He looked up and rushed out of the primordial ancient bell. "Sui," Lu Ruashi exclaimed. Without the protection of the primordial ancient bell, the pressure in the surrounding space would increase rapidly. At this moment, Tunten stood in front of Lu Ruashi and said softly, "Sister-in-law, let Master go. There are some things that only he can accomplish." Lu Ruashi looked at Tunten and Shangguan Tianshan as if she did not fully understand. Her eyes flickered slightly, but she did not say anything. The three of them quietly watched as Su-Yi fought with the sword winds of the 10,000 feet sword mountain. Bang, bang, bang. The space around Su-Yi continued to explode as black holes appeared around Su-Yi. The shattered space ripples shot out like fireworks. In the dim space, if there was anything that could block it, it would have turned into dust. Su-Yi waved the blood demon sword and slashed it horizontally. Dense energy of heaven and earth burst out from between his eyebrows. A huge energy vortex gathered around Su-Yi. No one knew what Su-Yi was feeling at this moment. Even if he could not find a way, Su-Yi wanted to use his own method to pay tribute to Duga Yuma. He kept shouting as the energy exploded, causing deafening explosions to reverberate in the void. Lu Ruashi and Tunten were slightly moved by Su-Yi's violence. Everyone could feel that Su-Yi was discovering something. This destructive aura was enough to destroy anyone in the world. The violent factor hidden in Su-Yi's heart was constantly being expressed. Suddenly, Lu Ruashi's moon-like eyes flickered and fluctuated continuously. She consciously chose not to disturb Su-Yi. She sat on the high platform and quietly watched as Su-Yi raged. On the other side, Tunten accompanied Lu Ruashi. Shangguan Tianshan began to size up the entire space. He touched his chin and looked suspiciously at the pale, white moon pattern above his head. If what Tunten said is true, why does the pattern of the blue crystal moon still exist? Shangwan Tianshan looked back at Su Yi, who was getting more and more terrifying. He pouted and walked to the side, as if he was thinking about something. Shenzhen Gate. Spiritual birds and auspicious beasts were galloping, and strange peaks were stacked on top of each other. The huge, sword-shaped peak towered into the clouds, and it was magnificent. The disciples guarding the foot of the mountain had already sent the news to Sito Luyan. Mu Yao and Gu Suxin had also rushed over after hearing the news. Sito Luyan, who had been waiting on the path at the back of the mountain for a long time, finally saw a tall youth covered in blood, and his aura was weak and scattered. Whoosh whoosh. 3 figures quickly flew to Sito Muyang's side. When Sito Luyan saw that his son was seriously injured, he immediately shouted, "Sito Muyang, aren't you in a myriad sword alliance? What happened?" Sito Muyang relaxed his aura, and his gaze fell on Sito Luyan. 2 lines of tears finally burst out from the corners of his eyes. He looked at Mu Yao and Gu Suxin and said softly, "Father, junior martial uncle." Mu Yao frowned and quickly stepped forward. She stared at Sito Muyang and asked him to continue. Su Yi. Sito Muyang choked with sobs. His red eyes were like a rampaging beast. He stared fiercely in the direction where he came from and said angrily, "Grandpa set it up. Junior martial uncle died in the Myriad Sword Alliance." Puffed. Blood spurted out. Hearing this, the 3 people all sucked in a breath of cold air. Mu Yao took a light step back, the corners of her mouth full of disbelief, and said with a miserable smile, "I don't believe it. Every time you say that Su Yi is dead, but every time he comes back alive." Whoosh! The golden rock's aura fluttered. Mu Yao shouted and turned into a golden light. Gu Suxin shouted behind her, "Mu Yao, Muyang." Sito Liuyun's voice interrupted Gu Suxin. She turned around and saw that Sito Muyang had fainted. "Sect Master, Su Yi seems to have detonated his blood essence. He needs to be treated immediately. I will investigate the matter regarding Su Yi." The 2 of them made a prompt decision and split up. Sito Luyan quickly carried Sito Muyang and rushed toward the Shenzhen Gate. The vital qi under Gu Suxin's feet surged, and she flew in the direction where Mu Yao had gone with a powerful force. In an instant, the Shenzhen Gate was in a panic. Sito Muyang's serious injury quickly attracted the attention of the sect's elders. The Shenzhen Gate's young sect master had detonated his blood essence to save Su Yi. A generation's genius had lost his life in the Myriad Sword Alliance. Sito Liuyun's majestic voice came from the clean room. She shouted, "Quick! Send the news back to the Chaos region. Sacred Mountain. Inform the Imperial Palace and get ready." Chapter 2399. Unlike before, the news of Su Yi's death in the Myriad Sword Alliance shocked the higher-ups of the Saint Mountain, Imperial Palace, demon-subduing sect, and chaos territory. Imperial Palace. Following Elder Guyu, who came back after listening to Yun Zhongli's words, everyone in Yuqian Palace believed Su Yi's death to be true. Su Yi is dead. What should we do now? Should I inform Palace Master Xiaoman? Luo Wuya looked troubled as he sat in the assembly hall, worried. Long Pasan shouted angrily and stood up. He was furious when he recalled the Myriad Sword Alliance's plot to frame Su Yi and kill Su Yi in Sword Mountain. "We have Palace Master Xiaoman and Senior Qin Tian. What are we afraid of? Now that Su Brad is dead, we naturally have to avenge him." Long Pasan glared at Elder Guyu, who was sitting at the head of the table. Long Pasan, Luo Wuya, and the others already knew that Duanmu Qin Tian had returned to the burial frost ground and was being treated by the Ice Lawn True God. Everyone's attention was focused on Elder Guyue. Guyue's eyes were gloomy. When he left the Myriad Sword Alliance, he had already discussed with Yun Zhongli that they would attack the Long family together once Yun Zhongli gave the order. Draconis, that bastard. How dare he come up with such a bullsh**t reason? If I don't kill him, Guyue, am not a human. Guyu's eyes were cold, and his face was filled with pain and pity. He looked at the crowd and said, "Now that things have come to this, there's no need to make any more plans. I've already sent someone to inform Qing Tian and Xiao Man, the two supremes. Pass on, gather all the soul ancestors in the Bawang sect, and send them to the demon-subduing sect. Once Palace Master Xiao Man comes out, we'll attack the Long family. Yes. After receiving the order, all of the elders raised their heads and roared. At this critical juncture, the elders who had always cultivated their bodies and minds and were calm like water were all gushing with blood and battle intent. Su, are you really dead? After everyone left, Guyue looked up at the void. The huge mysterious formation on the peak before the earthquake was slowly operating. The shocking scenes of Su Yi's past flashed through his mind. Guyue let out a long sigh, a trace of disbelief flashing across his shriveled face. Sacred Mountain. At dusk, the sky was filled with the glow of the sunset. Deep and serene, the waterfall that was 100 feet long slowly flowed down the smooth mountain wall. The red sun hung low in the sky in the distance, and the world was covered in a blood-red setting sun. Have you heard? Li Ling stood behind Xiahong Lu ever since she had returned from the Thunderfire Temple. Xiahong Lu had been cultivating wholeheartedly. In just a short time, Xiahong Lu, who had just come out of seclusion, had already broken through to the second level of the Origin Ancestor realm. The aura of a saint ruler spread across the sky, and the sharp aura of metal shook the flying demon beasts in the sky until they cried out incessantly. Xiahong Lu nodded, a trace of seriousness flashing across his long and narrow eyes. He said softly, "I've heard, madam. Do you believe it? The Yuqian Palace and the Yin family have already sent news, and it seems to be close to the truth." Li Ling's voice was low. She crossed her arms behind Xiahong Lu and said softly, "I also heard that Ruashi also." Before she finished speaking, Li Ling's voice began to sob. Whether she believed it or not, Lu Ruashi and Li Ling's relationship had been good since childhood, and Su Yi was the matchmaker between Li Ling and Xiahong Lu. Li Ling definitely couldn't accept such bad news. Xiahong Lu turned around. Under the setting sun, his broad body quickly hugged Li Ling and said seriously, "If no one in this world believes that kid, perhaps I will believe him too." Li Ling raised her head to look at Xiahong Lu with misty eyes. She only heard Xiahong Lu say, "Although I haven't heard of it, as long as I haven't seen that kid's corpse with my own eyes, I definitely won't believe that he died so easily." The Long family has endured for so long, and the fatal blow to Su Yi was too shocking. It caught everyone off guard. With that, Xiahong Lu wiped away Li Ling's tears and said seriously, "Get ready. The most terrifying war in the history of the Sky Barbarians is about to begin. That kid isn't here, but we have to follow his ideas and gather everyone's strength to fight against the Long family." Li Ling nodded softly and pressed her head against Xiahong Lu's chest. With the setting sun and a beauty by his side, Xiahong Lu's eyes were filled with a deep seriousness. "Hong Lu, it doesn't matter if the news is true or not. When the day comes, I will be like Ruashi. If you live, I live. If you die, I won't stay alone." Li Ling looked at the gurgling water in the mountains with determination. The milky white flying jades and pearls were so holy and beautiful. Nothing will happen to anyone. Just wait for that kid to return. Xiahong Lu took a deep breath. As the sun slowly set, the two of them gradually disappeared into the sky. In the demon-subduing sect, a few days passed quickly. All the soul ancestors and martial ancestors of the Imperial Palace had finally gathered together. In the Overlord Legion, the soul ancestors and martial ancestors had finally joined forces. In addition to the Celestial Demon Legion that had been cultivating in the demon-subduing sect, the core strength of the Bawang sect had finally gathered together. "Old sect leader, take a look. Everyone is here." Scarlet Stellar Leopard looked at Qi Fei Hong, who had come back from the dead. His entire body trembled as he nervously handed over the list of people to Xiahong Lu. After a quick calculation, the Overlord Legion had about 50 to 60,000 people. In addition to the Celestial Demon Legion's 50 to 60,000 people, all of them had undergone strict training. Compared to ordinary people, it wasn't a big problem to increase their strength by 3 to 4 times. In addition to the strength of the demon-subduing sect itself, Qi Fei Hong alone could command several million people. Standing to the side, Qi Dongjue and Qi Jiuzhen were also in fear and trepidation. Qi Fei Hong's reputation in the previous generation of the demon-subduing sect was like the Big Dipper. In front of Qi Fei Hong, even Qi Dongjue didn't dare to be impudent. The obedient Qi Jiuzhen's eyes were red. She pouted and said with grievance, "Grandpa Fei Hong, Su Yi, is Su Yi really dead?" Qi Fei Hong, who was concentrating on looking at the name list, immediately flew into a rage. A ferocious aura erupted from him, and a ferocious gale swept towards Qi Jiuzhen. Qi Fei Hong swept his sleeve when he saw Qi Jiuzhen's shocked expression. His thin and small body trembled slightly as he said coldly, "It's Jiuzhen," Qi Fei Hong said faintly. Qi Jiuzhen was also a little dazed by Qi Fei Hong's temper. She said softly, "Su Yi isn't dead. Don't say that in the future." "But I heard from them that it seems to be true." Qi Jiuzhen's tears fell like rain. Before she could finish, she started sobbing again. Qi Fei Hong slammed the table and stood up. He glared at the scarlet astral leopard and Qi Dongjue and roared, "Mother of asterisk Kerr. I said he's not dead. So he's not dead. What nonsense are you spreading? Hurry up and get ready. The Long family's battle is about to begin." "Yes, yes, yes." Qi Dongjue immediately nodded and bowed. His face was ashen as he pulled the scarlet astral leopard and Qi Jiuzhen out of the hall. Chapter 2400. "Yes, yes, yes." Qi Dongjue immediately nodded and bowed. His face was ashen as he pulled the scarlet astral leopard and Qi Jiuzhen out of the hall. After the three of them left, Qi Fei Hong's old eyes suddenly lost focus. He stood up in a daze and tossed the roster aside absent-mindedly. "Haha, you finally made a mistake this time, haven't you? Stinking brat. You mustn't let anything happen to you." As he spoke, Qi Fei Hong's gaze became slightly solemn. His hands were behind his back as he trembled slightly. His lonely figure seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant as he slowly walked into the depths of the hall. "Brat, if you really die, I don't want this old life of mine either. I'll return it to you." Qi Fei Hong's laughter gradually reached the hall and rose along with the airflow. At this time, the demon-subduing sect's members, including the 1 million people in the headquarters alone, had already gathered together. Outside the hall, on the demon-subduing platform, the scarlet astral leopard watched worriedly as the 1 million people gathered together day and night. Ever since the Overlord Legion and Celestial Demon Corps learned about Su Yi's death in the Myriad Sword Alliance, they had been cultivating madly. They were only waiting for an order to charge at the Long family. Although the old sect master said so, the news of Su Yi's death should be true. Are we really going to fight the Long family head-on? The scarlet astral leopard crossed his arms and looked shocked. Qi Dongjue turned to look at the scarlet astral leopard. His eyes were like an eagle's as he cursed. "Then what can you do? Your position was obtained from the old sect master. Now that Master Fei Hong is back, it's already good enough that Master Fei Hong didn't snatch it from you. The demon-subduing sect still has to listen to who they should listen to. Elder Dongjue, don't you understand the current situation? Now that Su Yi is dead, even if the Heavenly Command Palace is strong in the Chaos region, can they be stronger than the Long family? Who knows how many sects have already joined the Long family after hearing about Su Yi's death?" The scarlet astral leopard looked at Qi Dongjue with worry. Qi Jiuzhen's eyes turned solemn as he heard the two arguing. He shouted, "Master, what are you talking about? At a time like this, Su Yi is in trouble. Why are you still running away? The demon-subduing sect is such a coward." The scarlet stellar leopard waved his hand. If they really wanted to go head-to-head with the Long clan, the demon-subduing sect was used to being petty. He immediately said, "Jiuzhen, you don't understand. You don't know the pros and cons of this." Qi Jiuzhen nodded and sneered at the two before softly saying, "I can't tell the pros and cons, but I can tell what's important. Now I understand. I've been in the demon subduing sect for so many years, and I've always wondered why the demon subduing sect is so unpopular. Is it because we're in a damn place like Yuzhou? So it wasn't him, it was you. Us. Eastern Chi Ju frowned. Doubt and anger flashed across his face. Chi Jiuzhen nodded and stepped back. He shouted, "It's you? You're used to being petty. Is the demon subduing sect born to be inferior to others? Only after Su Yi took over the demon subduing sect did I know what it means to be a man with courage. Master, you really don't have any courage at all." As he finished, Chi Jiuzhen's face turned fiery. The energy beneath her feet surged, and under the shocked faces of the two, she looked down at the cultivators below. The crowd looked up at the sky. Chi Jiuzhen's eyes were filled with killing intent. He turned around and looked at Eastern Chi and the scarlet stellar leopard with disdain. "People of the demon subduing sect, listen up. Now that Sect Master Su is in trouble, what should you do? Revenge. Revenge for the Sect Master." On the mountain, the crowd surged, and their shouts shook the sky. Demonic chi filled the forest, and the roars of beasts were like thunder. Cold light flashed in the eyes of all the people below the stage. Their faces were ashen as they shouted madly towards the sky. Ferocious spatial ripples rushed into the sky, setting off countless waves. "Against the Long family, are you afraid?" Chi Jiuzhen's eyes were filled with killing intent. He pointed at the sky, and a deep purple energy pillar surged out like a venomous snake. It was breathtaking. Boom! In an instant, countless terrifying energy pillars surged out. As if they had sensed something other than the rumbling of energy, there was only roaring. Looking at the blood-red killing intent of every cultivator and demonic beast, the boiling anger almost ignited the entire serene province. Shouts and screams filled the sky, and it was as if lightning had struck from the 9 directions. Thunder rumbled, and heaven and earth shook. In the center of the huge sound wave, the deafening roars brought the passion to a peak, and it exploded in the sky above the demon subduing sect like a bomb. "Don't be afraid. Revenge for Sect Master Su. Fight the Long family. Don't be afraid. Revenge for Sect Master Su. Fight the Long family. Don't be afraid. Revenge for Sect Master Su. Fight the Long family. Ho! Ho! Ho!" The lion's roar and tiger's roar caused the energy in the air to circulate wildly. Chi Jiuzhen stood in the middle of the space vortex, looking back at Chi Dongjue and the scarlet astral leopard. His eyes were cold, as if he was provoking them. This girl, there should be a limit to her worship of Su Yi. Su Yi is already dead. What are you still doing here? The scarlet astral leopard shouted. His pupils constricted, and he was about to rush up and pull Chi Jiuzhen down. "Enough. Scarlet astral leopard, I understand now." Chi Dongjue took a deep breath and glared at the scarlet astral leopard. The scene before him was like an erupting volcano, and Chi Dongjue's fiery red hair fluttered. The scarlet astral leopard's lips curled into a meaningful smile. His eyes were slightly shocked as he said, "Elder Dongju, what do you know? Damn it, go. After so many years, I'm used to kneeling in the demon subduing sect. How can I be considered a member of the demon subduing sect if I'm still wagging my tail and begging for mercy at this time?" Jiuzhen is right. I'd rather die standing than die kneeling. Isn't it just the Long family? With so many people accompanying us, and with Uncle Fei Hong leading us, let's kill the Long family. Avenge Su Yi. After saying that, Chi Fei Hong also rushed into the sky to boost the morale and liven up the atmosphere with Chi Jiuzhen. Chi Dongjue of the demon subduing sect is also participating in the battle. It's time for the demon subduing sect to change the world's view. Chi Dongjue roared at the sky. With a roar, he rushed to Chi Jiuzhen's side. The latter's eyes trembled, and his dimples sank. Crazy. All of them are crazy. They're dying together. The scarlet astral leopard wanted to cry, but had no tears. His voice trembled. Huh. In the sky above the demon subduing sect, the essence chi light surrounded the sky, and the sound waves seemed to be stabbing the world down. On the other side, in the Thunderfire Temple, Yin Mietian was in a dilemma. After returning to his territory, the news of Su Yi's death would quickly spread throughout the Heaven Barbarian world. Should the Thunderfire Temple participate in the battle or not? The stubborn old men in the sect knew that they had worked so hard to support Su Yi and help Su Yi obtain the fire suppression Heaven Stone. It was like eating a big fly for them. It would be strange if they didn't feel disgusted. Chapter 24:01. Roar. Yin Mietian frowned as he sat on a fiery red stone chair without saying a word. A group of old and unruly elders had just come to cause a ruckus in the hall. Just like the Yuqian Palace and the demon-subduing sect, even a supremacy like him was in trouble. Su Yi had taken the fire-suppressing Heavenstone from the pagoda flames. This was a fatal blow to the Thunderfire Sacred Hall's elders, who viewed it as their own lives. When Yin Mietian first learned of this news, he had comforted himself a lot before he was able to let go of his worries. If Su Yi was still alive, he would be chased to the ends of the earth by these old men, even if he wasn't hunted down by the Long family. However, what these old men didn't know was that the fire-suppressing Heavenstone didn't belong to the Thunderfire Sacred Hall. The Thunderfire Sacred Hall had already walked through the gates of hell. If it wasn't for the protection of the Fire Scale Sky Beast, the Thunderfire Sacred Hall wouldn't still exist. Aristocratic families always thought too highly of themselves. The Long family wasn't the only one. The other aristocratic families were the same. The Myriad Sword Alliance had thought that they could trap Su Yi with the Myriad Sword Mountain and flatter Draconis. They had come up with such a stupid plan and ended up losing their lives. Yin Mietian smiled when he thought of this. At this moment, Dugu Chung was probably suffering the most horrible punishment in the aristocratic families. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Yin Mietian clapped his hands. When he thought of the Yuqian Palace and Yun Zhongli's imminent action, he began to feel anxious. How should he persuade these old men? While he was in a dilemma, Yin Mietian's eyes suddenly darkened. Two Sky Origin sect auras shot into the room. Yin Mietian's face immediately stiffened. "Liner," Yin Mietian said embarrassedly. At this moment, both Su Chun and Yin Lin had improved by varying degrees after entering into closed-door cultivation in the Sacred Ocean of Flames. Su Chun had already broken through to the first level of the Origin Ancestor Realm, whereas Yin Lin's cultivation had advanced a level and arrived at the second level of the Origin Ancestor Realm. Su Chun looked at Yin Mietian and said, "Master, I heard that something has happened to fourth brother." Yin Mietian nodded. Yin Lin's long and narrow eyes were filled with anxiety. His body stiffened as he took a step forward and stared at Yin Mietian. It was as if the answer was written all over Yin Mietian's face. "Who told you that?" Yin Mietian's expression changed slightly as he frowned. "Master, hurry up and tell me, is this true?" Su Chen's eyes burned as his voice grew louder and louder. Yin Mietian's eyes flashed. The only thing that could make Su Chun so excited was Su. Yin Mietian's expression turned bitter as he said, "Sometimes, what you hear is false, but seeing is believing. Something had happened to Su Yi, but I didn't see Su Yi's body. You should know better than us how capable this brat is." Su Chun and Yin Lin looked at each other, the killing intent in their eyes gradually condensing. Then, Su Chun clenched his fists as the lightning marks circled between his eyebrows. He said, "When are we going to attack? Does the Long family really think that they can cover the sky with one hand? How dare they touch my brother?" "Of course, the sooner the better." A familiar voice came from outside the door. Before the person arrived, the fragrance of the wine had already spread for 1,000 miles. Su Chun and Yin Lin's eyes filled with tears when they heard the voice. "Big brother." The two shouted at the same time. Their bodies stiffened as they quickly walked to Merciless West Side, accompanied by Elder Luo Wuya. Yin Mietian also walked down the stairs when he saw the newcomer. "Greetings, Palace Master Yin." Merciless West's dim yellow eyes shone brightly. Her bloodshot eyes, due to years of drinking, added a hint of laziness to her temperament. Yin Ye Tian returned the greeting. Seeing that Luo Wia had also come, he must have brought good news from the Imperial Palace. Yin Ye Tian knew that at least the Holy Mountain, Imperial Palace, demon-subduing sect, Bawang sect, and the Yun family were all prepared. "Are you here to discuss the day of the attack?" Yin Ye Tian asked in a serious tone. Then they sat down. Merciless West had already told Yin Ye Tian about the current situation. The Imperial Palace had already made preparations under Elder Guyue's arrangement. The demon-subduing sect had also finished gathering their forces. The Chaos region had already been unified before Su Yi left. In addition, everyone was cultivating in seclusion, so their strength was even fiercer. The snowy red house of the Holy Mountain had also sent a message to the Chaos region. They were only waiting for the order to join the battle at any time. Yin Ye Tian listened to Merciless West and frowned. He nodded thoughtfully. Su Chun and Yin Lin sat on the west side. They looked at Merciless West with eyes full of splendor. They said loudly, "Big brother, we are ready to fight at any time. Someone actually dares to bully us. I will definitely make the Long family pay with blood." Merciless West nodded with a smile. He hadn't seen his two brothers for many years. Looking at his two younger brothers, Merciless West smiled. At this time, Yin Ye Tian said, "What is Palace Master Xiao Man's reaction to Su Yi's accident?" Luo Wuya stood up and said seriously, "Palace Master Xiao Man has been cultivating in seclusion for a few months. If she knew that Su Yi was killed by the Myriad Sword Alliance and the Long family, I'm afraid that she would rush to the Long family alone." Yin Ye Tian nodded and pursed his lips. He couldn't bring himself to say that he wanted to give them more time. Su Chen saw this and said coldly, "Master, are you worried that the people in the temple won't help Su Yi?" Yin Ye Tian nodded as he looked at Yin Lin. Yin Lin was the only successor of the extreme fire scale heavenly beast. Yin Ye Tian had to go alone to repay the extreme fire scale heavenly beast's favor. But compared to the sacred hall, which one was more important? After a long time, Yin Ye Tian finally said, "At this time, there are some things that we can only explain clearly to the old fogies. Otherwise, if they continue to think that everything in the world is natural, then the Thunderfire Temple won't be far from its demise." Merciless West took a sip of wine and looked at Yin Ye Tian approvingly. Luo Wuya also nodded and said, "It is said that Palace Master Yin is the most careless among the reverends. But now, it seems that he is the one who sees the most clearly." Yin Ye Tian waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Fine, Chiner, I will immediately convene the temple assembly. The old fogies should understand this principle." After saying that, the three of them left the hall, leaving only Merciless West and Luo Wuya behind. "I see that you are not worried about Su Yi at all." Luo Wuya smiled bitterly. After a long while, Shi Wuqing scratched the back of his head, closed his eyes slightly, and said faintly, "Although this kid is reckless, he always has great luck that is beyond ordinary people. He always has the feeling of coming back from the jaws of death. This time, he may have suffered a big setback, but with my many years of experience, this kid won't die so easily. Since we can't help him, we can only do other things." Chapter 2402. Phew. Merciless West took a deep breath and said, "Now that I think about it, this kid has really influenced a lot of people. The heavenly barbarian world needs a youth like this to become interesting. For example, this old man has become much younger." Luo Wuya laughed, and the two chatted like this for half a day. Boom! Outside the main hall, the spatial ripples directly transformed into a long spatial crack, sharp and desolate. Merciless West and Luo Wuya looked up at the same time. Yin Ye Tian and Su Chun came over with red faces. Merciless West's lips curled up. It seemed that something good had happened. "How is it?" Merciless West looked at Yin Ye Tian and asked emotionally. Yin Ye Tian looked at the two and laughed. He said seriously, "It's not a big problem. It took me a lot of effort to explain the situation to those old guys. They want to work together to sneak into the Pagoda Flame Sea and see what's going on. If it's really under the protection of the fire-scale heavenly beast, the Thunderfire Temple won't do such a thing. Hearing this, Su Chen's eyes became incomparably deep. He said softly, "Master, even Su, he has a hard time at the bottom of the Pagoda Flame Sea. It's not that easy to go down." Yin Mie Tian's eyes flashed. He said with a gloomy face, "It's fine. As long as we can make the experts of the Thunderfire Temple change their minds. This is nothing. When the time comes, I'll accompany them and let them go down and take a look. Zhuyama, Brother Wuya, you can go back now and tell Palace Master Xiaoman that the Thunderfire Temple will also participate in this battle." Yin Mie Tian laughed, and his eyes trembled. Immediately, Merciless West and Luo Wuya were excited. As long as the Thunderfire Temple was united, the Long family's battle would be much more stable. "Temple Master Yin, I have another matter to discuss with you this time." After a few breaths, Luo Wuya said faintly. His calm face was ashen. A bright light flashed in the Yin Yetian tiger's eyes as he asked softly, "Are you talking about the Divine Dragon ceremony 3 months from now?" Luo Wuya nodded. After leaving the Myriad Sword Alliance, Draconis had announced that the Long family would hold a grand Divine Dragon Hall in 3 months. In other words, in these 3 months, Draconis should be wholeheartedly on the path to godhood. Within 3 months, Draconis actually dared to tell us so openly. This means that he's not afraid of our counterattack. When we are preparing for the battle, we have to communicate with him in time in case the Long family has some strange tricks up their sleeves. Luo Wuya said in a low voice with worry on his face. Yin Mie Tian took a deep breath, and his eyes shone brightly. He placed his left hand on his right hand, and crackling sounds could be heard. He smiled faintly and said, "Our strength isn't for show." 2 aristocratic families, the entire Chaos Realm, the Sacred Mountain, and the Demon Subduing Sect. We could take advantage of this opportunity to deal a fatal blow to the Long family. After saying this, Yin Mie Tian reminded Luo Wuya that they should inform Duanmu Xiaoman as soon as possible after they returned. Once Duanmu Xiaoman came out of seclusion, they should immediately start preparing. Several sects were scattered in different continents, so it was not convenient for them to communicate with each other. There had to be someone to command the entire army. When the time came for a general attack, there would also be someone to plan. This person would be Duanmu Xiaoman. After the discussion, Merciless West and Luo Wuya hurried back to the Chaos Realm and Yuqian Palace. In the end, Luo Wuya didn't know what Duanmu Xiaoman was doing in seclusion. However, from the fact that Gyue could hold back for so long without disturbing Duanmu Xiaoman, it must be something earth-shattering. After Merciless West returned to the Chaos Realm, hundreds of thousands of cultivators in the Golden Dragon Mystery Realm were still crazily cultivating. After the Green Emperor, the Yin Yang Tu Nether, and the other Beast Emperors heard that Su Yi was in trouble, they went crazy. Their killing intent soared to the sky, and they wanted to take revenge on the Long family immediately. Fortunately, Merciless West stopped them. Now, the entire army was waiting for the various sects to come up with a plan. Within 3 months, they would attack the Long family. Woo-woo. In the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace, when Draconis brought Long Kuei and the others back to the palace, there were resounding dragon roars everywhere. The space froze and golden light shone. The Long family's cultivators and troops on the battleships filled the sky. Rumble. On this day, the entire Heavenly Palace's battleship was resplendent and dazzling. Deafening roars pierced the sky, and 9 golden dragon phantoms with majestic killing intent soared into the sky, firmly supporting the battleship. The space rippled, and the overwhelming golden energy turned into fireworks and lightning, causing the entire sky to become incomparably resplendent, causing one's heart to skip a beat. On the battleship, the Long Ben army stood in a row, holding tall dragon-scale horns in their hands and blowing into them, making a whimpering sound that surged with emotions. Even more disciples of the Long family slammed the weapons in their hands heavily on the ground. The sound of explosions filled the air, and it was like the ancient chanting of Sanskrit. Wong Wong. In a clean room of the Long family, a curvy figure with wavy yellow hair leaned against the window. It was Longya, who had been locked up for a long time. In her mind, since she could remember, the Long family had not been so lively for a long time. Xiaoyu, what's happening outside? Longya asked the Long Ben army soldier who was guarding her outside the door. The soldier, called Xiaoyu, turned around with pride in his eyes. He looked at Longya with a slight smile and a cold look in his eyes. Sister Longya, you don't know. The dragon god is back, and so is great elder Long Kuei. I heard that the Long family is in the limelight on the Tianyin continent again. What limelight? Longya's skin had become extremely delicate and lustrous after staying in the courtyard for a long time. She reached out her soft hand and gently tapped her temple as she asked. Xiaoyu turned around completely, and his eyes trembled. He said mysteriously, I heard that the king of heaven who injured young Master Long Song is finally dead. He was suppressed by the dragon god under the 1,000-feet sword mountain. Now, the Tianyin continent belongs to the Long family completely. What? Longya's dry lips trembled slightly, and her gaze froze in the sky. Looking at the sky through the gap in the window, she saw a golden glow that covered the sky and the earth. It was as if the winner was announcing to the world that the Long family had become a god. Another soldier, standing beside Xiaoyu, coughed and turned to Longya with a smile. Miss Longya, it's a pity that you didn't participate. However, as long as Elder Long Kuei is around, it's also your contribution. In the future, Miss Longya, please put in a few good words for us in front of the elders. Is what you said true? Longya was stunned. She felt dizzy, and her pale face was instantly drained of blood. She immediately asked softly. Chapter 24:03. Xiao Yu and the other soldier looked at each other and whispered, Yes, yes. Miss Longya, what happened to you? Before they could finish speaking, Longya had already returned to her bed. She stared at the ground in disappointment as large drops of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Grandpa, so you left to kill Su Yi? Longya kept repeating this sentence in her heart, and her eyes suddenly turned red. She grabbed the quilt in her hand and threw it into the air. Immediately, the quilt flew all over the sky. The white cotton floated down slowly, and Longya's face was covered with frost. She stood up and walked outside. Xiaoyu, open the door. Xiaoyu was in a bit of a dilemma. But when he saw Longya's face that was like a Rakshas's, and her breathtaking aura surged out with boundless chi waves, his heart trembled and he gulped. I said, open the door. My grandpa is back. How long are you going to keep me here? Open the door. Open the door. Xiaoyu was scared out of his wits. His face turned pale and his mouth twitched. He quickly opened the door. Boom. The monstrous aura of the golden dragon swept out along with a terrifying soul attack. Longya released all the anger and resentment in her heart. The golden light covered the sky and swept across the space. Soon, Longya arrived on the deck. Everything happened too suddenly. She rushed to the deck and saw a sea of people in the sky. They were overjoyed, and everyone was cheering at the figure in the space crack. Welcome back, Dragon God! Roar! While everyone was in shock, a huge golden dragon shadow swept across the sky from the crack. The space between heaven and earth trembled. It was the Dragon God. Behind him were a dozen experts from the Long family. They looked arrogant as they looked at the crowd below. Their auras surged, and the space changed color. Longya had already believed that Su Yi was dead. She rushed into the crowd in a daze and kept coming to the front of the deck. She stared at the Dragon God with her bright eyes. At this moment, Long Song, who could already stand up, was standing with his hands behind his back. His cold face was also filled with anger. He looked at Longya from the corner of his eyes and said softly, Why didn't you go with him? This obvious mockery and disdain caused Longya's emotions to explode instantly. Longya did not know how she could tolerate such a person in the past. You didn't go either, right? You were supposed to be standing on top today. Longya's eyes turned cold. She looked at Long Song without turning back and left. The golden waves swept across Long Song's face without lingering. Pa! Long Song subconsciously grabbed Longya's arm. Among the crowd, Long Song's voice was close to a growl. His killing intent was pouring out as he said, "Yes, I didn't participate. However, that person was already dead. I'm afraid you're not here to see your grandfather." "What are you talking about?" "I don't understand." Longya wanted to shake off Long Song's strong hand. She frowned and looked at him with disdain. At this moment, Long Song seemed to have found his dignity after being trampled on by Su-yi. His eyes trembled, and he said fiercely, "Don't think that I don't know that Long Kuei left you in the Heavenly Palace because he was afraid that you would leak information, right? Let go of me. Let go of me." Longya frowned, and a trace of pain flashed across her delicate face. Long Song's strength made Longya's pink lotus-like arms shake slightly. Suddenly, Long Song pulled Longya to the other side of the crowd. His face was instantly close to hers, and his eyes were filled with disdain and resentment. He said, "You're just one of my many maidservants, but you must be mine." Fortunately, Su-yi is dead. If he was still alive, I would make him suffer a fate worse than death. Remember this. You have no right to choose in front of me." Longya was so angry that she laughed as she looked at Long Song's face. Her brows relaxed, and she said fearlessly, "Compared to him, you're not even fit to carry his shoes. Now I know why he beat you up so badly. It's because you're a piece of trash. Let go of me." A cold glint shot out from the depths of Longya's moon-like eyes. Instantly, the aura of a sixth-level origin ancestor gushed out from her body. A terrifying energy appeared out of nowhere and instantly repelled Long Song's body. Long Song, who was in the crowd, was slightly stunned. He subconsciously took a few steps back. Longya had already walked forward and turned her head. Her transparent eyes were filled with disdain. "Su-yi, why are you still haunting me, even though you're dead? I'm going to destroy everything you had in the Sky Barbarian world." Long Song roared angrily. He, who was supposed to be the most powerful person in the Sky Palace, had always lived in the shadow of his father, Draconis. Now, Su-yi had trampled on his self-esteem among his peers. Both of them had been seriously injured at the same time, and Su-yi had disappeared without a trace. However, while Long Song had been recuperating for a long time, Su-yi had acted as if nothing had happened. Instead, he had caused an even greater commotion in the Sky Barbarian world. Long Song felt indignant and unjust. Even his own woman had been conquered by Su-yi. He hated Su-yi to the core. Long Kuei, who was in the sky, had a panoramic view of Long Song and Longya's entanglement. Long Kuei asked for leave from Long Yang and hurriedly chased after Longya. Draconis narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, a terrifying energy appeared around him. He returned to the sacred dragon palace with a dazzling light as if a meteorite had fallen. Looking at Long Kuei's back, Draconis's eyes flashed. The Sky Palace was as vast as the Myriad Sword Alliance and the Thunderfire Sacred Palace. Longya sat on the edge of the deck and looked at the floating clouds below. She could not help but tear up as she passed through a huge golden forest. "Are you blaming me for not telling you?" Long Kuei's voice came from behind her. Longya immediately wiped away her tears and calmed herself down. "Is he really dead?" Longya's eyes were red, and she was sobbing. Long Kuei did not reply for a long time. He only told Longya that Su-yi had fallen deep into the earth's core. Even if he was alive, he would not be able to come out. Longya was stunned when she heard that. She squinted her eyes and did not know what to say. She then said, "Grandfather, I don't blame you. Our positions are different. This day will come sooner or later. But when it comes, Ye-er's heart still hurts." Long Kuei also sat on the deck with Longya. The wind blew across their cheeks. Long Kuei had a kind expression on his face as he said softly, "Ye-er, your parents died when you were young. I brought you up single-handedly. Sometimes I didn't take good care of you enough. I thought that you wouldn't be able to figure it out. But since you said so, I'm relieved." "Grandfather." Longya was even sadder when she heard Long Kuei's words. Long Kuei said, "Speaking of which, this kid saved my life. It seems like I can only repay him in my next life." Chapter 2404. Tears welled up in Long Ya's eyes as she recalled how Su Yi had bravely protected the village in Shanglong Village in Yinzhou. In Tianlan Sea City, Su Yi had turned the tide and finally released her grandfather. Long Yi gently leaned on her grandfather's shoulder. She felt that all of this was just an illusion. "Grandfather, I've made up my mind. The dragon god will become a true god in 3 months. Haven't you always wanted to leave? Grandfather will accompany you out of the heavenly palace." At first, Long Yi wanted to leave the heavenly palace to seek a new life. Now that Su Yi was dead, how could Long Yi be in the mood to leave the heavenly palace? The world was vast, but her heart had no place to return. However, her usually strict grandfather, Long Kui, was willing to do this for her. Long Yi knew that Su Yi's death must have impacted Long Kui greatly. "Grandfather, how did Su Yi die?" Long Yi closed her eyes as 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. Woo-woo! The golden wind blew, blowing Long Kui's white beard. Long Kui's face stiffened as he narrowed his eyes. He thought about how he was standing behind Draconis and how he was in the Tianlan Sea region. The comparison between the two was extremely ridiculous. Long Kui, who had always been conceited, had always thought that he was the strongest person in the Long family other than the dragon god. However, because of the death of Brat, he had other thoughts about the martial Dao. That day, in the Myriad Sword Alliance, Long Kui did not say a word. He was silent as he watched Su Yi struggling in the Myriad Sword Mountain. He did not make a move, nor did he say anything. He just watched his savior die. Long Kui knew that no one could stop Draconis' path to becoming a true god, including himself. However, did Long Kui really approve of Draconis' actions? After returning from the Myriad Sword Alliance, Long Kui had become more taciturn than before. Long Kui did not understand. If he really wanted to become the overlord of Sky Barbarian, didn't he to have such ulterior motives and advance step by step? Would Draconis bring the Long family to the top or drag the Long family into the abyss of hell? Long Kui had doubts in his heart. Seeing Lu Ruashi and Dugi Yuma sacrificing themselves for Su Yi, Long Kui was undoubtedly moved. The feelings between heaven and earth were sincere and precious. Long Kui had seen this from his own granddaughter. At that moment, Long Kui was afraid. He was afraid that his only granddaughter would end up like this. If one disregarded their standpoints, Long Kui admired Su Yi very much. He even felt that Su Yi was an extremely outstanding person. However, it was too late. Regret and torment made Long Kui unable to face his own heart. At this moment, Long Kui only wanted to protect his granddaughter. As for Draconis' path to godhood, whoever was willing could go. Suddenly, Draconis glanced at the golden shadow in the distance and said softly, "The world is full of treacherous people, and human relationships are like clouds and rain. Let bygones be bygones. The 2 of us are going to live in a new place. Grandpa is getting old. There are many things that I don't want to care about anymore." Long Yi was speechless. Hearing this, Long Yi closed her eyes completely. With Su Yi's ability, no ordinary means could kill him. Those violent and shocking scenes appeared in her mind. Long Yi's body trembled slightly, and her heart beat wildly. On the deck, Long Kui accompanied his granddaughter until the sky darkened and the white moon hung high in the sky. When they returned to the Dragon God Temple, the powerhouses had been assigned new tasks. Along the way, they heard a few powerhouses discussing the godhood ceremony in 3 months. Everyone was excited. After 3 months, Sky Barbarian would be the Long family's world. Long Kui's head was slightly lowered. He was not in good spirits, so he just casually greeted the people around him. Walking into the Dragon God Temple, the vast hall was quiet and cold. "Elder Long Kui, you really love your granddaughter. You actually made me wait for so long." In an inexplicable darkness, Draconis' figure slowly appeared from the space ripples. His black pupils glowed strangely as he stared at Long Kui. At this moment, there were only the 2 of them in the hall. "Yer has been grounded by me for many days, so she can't help but be a little emotional. Dragon God, Please don't take offense. Long Kuei put on a fake smile. His wrinkled face curved slightly. Draconis slowly raised his chin. Long Kuei's every word and action were under his scrutiny. Then, Draconis told Long Kuei about the arrangements just now. Long Kuei instantly shuddered when he heard this, and then he bowed to Long Yang and said, Dragon God, Long Kuei is unable to bear the responsibility of annihilating the Chaos region. To tell you the truth, I was just about to resign from my position. Oh, Draconis' voice immediately darkened. Not only did Long Kuei reject his arrangements, but he even wanted to resign. Draconis' deep and dark eyes turned. He turned and left. Sitting on the back of the high chair, he said in a low voice, Elder Long Kuei, you're not going to assist me at such a crucial time? Long Kuei swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Cold sweat instantly covered his forehead. He said in a low voice, This time, I feel that I'm powerless. It's a foregone conclusion that you'll become a god. I've dedicated my life to the Long family. I've already done my best. Please fulfill my wish, Dragon God. Sighing deeply, Long Kuang narrowed his eyes. Light burst out from his eyes as he said softly, What a pity. However, the Long family has never said that they'll leave the family. Elder Long Kuei is an accident. If you're really unwilling to share the glory with me, I won't force you. Long Kuei immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He had just relaxed when he heard Draconis' words. You can leave, but Longyear is still young. The Long family won't give up such a talent. Draconis said lightly. Draconis instantly looked up. In his dim eyes, Draconis' figure became extremely unfamiliar. He was cold, resolute, and there was no room for negotiation. In the next moment, Draconis' figure disappeared from the hall. A faint golden light pattern spread in the air, and a voice was heard. Since you don't want to destroy those sects, then go to the Myriad Sword Alliance and guard the mountain for me. No one can stop me, and no one can disobey me. Boom! The strong wind completely dissipated. The dazzling golden heaven and earth energy released a trace of cold and gloomy aura. Even in the hall, Long Kuei felt a chill in his heart. In a trance, Long Kuei did not know how he walked out of the Divine Dragon Palace. He raised his head to look at the bright moon. The Long family seemed to have changed. He didn't recognize them anymore. Grandfather, Longya, who had been waiting for her grandfather in the corner, quickly walked out. She looked troubled and worried. It's Longya, hiding here to eavesdrop again? Long Kuei forced a smile. Longya pursed her lips and said softly, Grandfather, I'll guard the mountain then. I'm willing. Long Kuei laughed. He looked back at the place where he had lived for decades. It was extremely unfamiliar. He sighed in his heart. Chapter 2405. Long Kuei shook his head at the thought. Early the next morning, Long Kuei left the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace with Longya and returned to the Myriad Sword Alliance. At the same time, several strange golden figures were following them in the dark. Standing on a mountain, Longya could feel the strong wind blowing. It was the heartbeat of the earth and Su Yi's breathing. Is Su Yi buried here? Longya's eyes were misty with tears. She covered her mouth and turned her head to the side. Su Yi must have suffered a lot, right? When Longya thought about how such an arrogant and unruly man was suppressed in the earth's core, her delicate body instantly trembled and her heart turned cold. Long Kuei let out a long sigh and walked down the mountain. He turned around and looked at the golden figure with mixed feelings. At the same time, Dugahen and the others had cleaned up the Myriad Sword Alliance. Du Gucheng's cultivation was crippled, and he was imprisoned in the back mountain. Elder Long Kuei, why are you guarding the mountain? Dugahen asked. Long Kuei smiled bitterly and looked at Dugahen with his dim eyes. He knew that his grandson had severed all ties with him. He said, It's been a long time. What's more important than blood relatives? Blood relatives? Situm Liang's figure appeared in Dugahen's mind. Dugahen, who had aged a few decades in just a few days, smirked. Now that the Myriad Sword Alliance was under his control, he no longer felt proud of it. The Dragon God wants the Myriad Sword Alliance to hold the Chaos region back for 3 months. We must eliminate all of Su Yi's people, Long Kuei said. Dugahen looked solemn as he sat on the high platform. The Dragon God had gone into seclusion to make a final effort to break through to the Origin Sky Realm. According to the Dragon God, the Yin family, Thunderfire Temple, Heavenly Command Palace, Chaos Region, Demon Subduing Sect, and Boundless Sect had all submitted to the Long family. 3/4 of the Heaven Barbarians had already belonged to the Long family. Within 3 months, the Immortal Sword Sect, the Divine Tiger Sect, and the Gemini Sect attacked the Yun family with all their might. The Heavenly Dragons Sect went against the Sacred Mountain. Sky Sea City naturally chose to deal with the Thunderfire Temple and the Taiching Sect under their jurisdiction. The Taixing Sect and the Limitless Sect were besieged by the sects of their respective continents. The Taiching Sect and the Demon Subduing Sect will be besieged by other forces on their own continents. In the end, the Long family would personally deal with the Heavenly Palace and the Immeasurable Sect in the Cloud State. That's right. The Myriad Sword Alliance has already fallen to such a state, and they want us to fight the Chaos Realm? Isn't that going too far? Dugahen was incomparably cold and resolute. His eyes flashed with a bright light as he gritted his teeth. What do you think? Long Kuei said faintly as he bent his body, as if he was an outsider. Dugahen pursed his lips. Although the Myriad Sword Alliance was broken, it was still incomparable to the Chaos Realm. The Chaos Realm could be destroyed, but Dugahen did not want to be caught in the whirlpool. The Long family could not follow. After a pause, Dugahen's eyes instantly surged with a trace of coldness. He said softly, "The Dragon God wants me to be consigned to eternal damnation. The Chaos Realm is Su Yi's painstaking effort. I can't bear to destroy it. That's why I chose to guard the mountain." Long Kuei raised his head, his face expressionless. "But where can I hide?" Dugahen's lips curled up slightly. Under his command, the Myriad Sword Alliance had no reason to reject Draconis. "Then, have you thought of resisting?" Long Kuei paused and looked at Dugahen. Suddenly, Dugahen's body stiffened. He waved his hand, and a fierce wind enveloped the two of them, isolating them from the outside world. Dugahen looked at Longya, who was on the peak of the Sword Mountain, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. "Elder Long Kuei, what do you mean?" Long Kuei waved his hand and said softly, "I'm just saying, you and I are both the Dragon God's men. We don't have such thoughts. Just take it that I'm talking nonsense." After a long silence, Dugahen raised his eyes and sat next to Dugahen. He said softly, "You and I have the same experience. We both have feelings in our hearts. If you tell me the truth, I won't hide it from you. I've thought about it. I want to resist." Suddenly, Long Kuei's dry smile changed slightly. He said intermittently, "But Su Yi is dead. Who can become the overlord of the Heaven Barbarian tribe?" "Who said that Su Yi is dead?" Dugahen lowered his voice and looked at Long Kuei. His eyes shone brightly, and he did not seem to be lying. "He's not dead." Long Kuei was surprised, and a hint of hidden joy spread in his eyes. Dugahen nodded solemnly and told Long Kuei that the Myriad Sword Alliance had done a thorough study of the Myriad Sword Alliance over the past 10,000 years. There were too many mysterious formations and talismans on the Myriad Sword Alliance. It's just that no one thought that the entire Myriad Sword Mountain would collapse. Otherwise, theoretically, the mountain would never disappear, Dugahen said firmly. Long Kuei was instantly excited. His breathing quickened as he asked further, "How do you know that Su Yi is not dead?" Dugahen pointed at the shining light pillars in the distance. There was one in each of the 4 directions. He said seriously, "Do you see those pillars? Since ancient times, countless people have come to the Myriad Sword Alliance to cultivate their sword essence. Considering the danger of the Myriad Sword Mountain, the experts of the Sword Alliance specially set up the Soul Origin Array. If one of the 4 light pillars lit up, it means that the person inside is in danger. The Sword Alliance will naturally intervene to help. Long Kuei suddenly remembered that Su-Yi was in the Myriad Sword Mountain at that time. Only one light pillar lit up, and then it disappeared. This proved that Su-Yi was definitely still alive. It's just that the mountain fell into the Earth's core. You know what kind of place the Earth's core is? Su-Yi is as good as dead if he's alive. Duga-hen spread out his hands, indicating that there was nothing he could do to help. Long Kuei immediately nodded. He looked at the faint aura of the golden dragon in the distance and said to Duga-hen, "Are you willing to overturn the world?" Duga-hen narrowed his eyes. The Long family had caused him to end up like this, and even asked him to destroy Su-Yi's chaos region. As his grandfather, Duga-hen did not want to hurt Situ Muyang's heart. He immediately said softly, "That's what I'm thinking. Draconis wants to become a god? Dream on." In the calm night sky, Long Kuei and Duga-hen looked at each other and suddenly decided on a plan. After the discussion, Duga-hen followed Long Kuei's instructions and instantly gathered the army and rushed to the Chaos region. In private, the remaining experts of the Myriad Sword Alliance secretly gathered together to plan the mining of the Myriad Sword Mountain. No matter what the opportunity was, they had to try. They had to use the old man's method to overturn the world. Grandpa wants to fight for a bright future for you," Long Kuei said softly as he looked at the beautiful figure on the peak of the Sword Mountain. Then he locked his aura on a few faint auras in the distance and said coldly, "Draconis, I'm here to guard the mountain. Don't you trust me?" Chapter 2406. In the Golden Dragon's space in the Chaos Territory, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang twins, the Purple Elephant Emperor, the Dragon Rhinoceros Emperor, and the rest stood in the middle of the space. Their auras were strong, and their killing intent filled the sky. They were fully prepared. Their bodies were filled with energy, and countless pairs of eyes were staring at merciless West, who had just returned from the Thunderfire Sacred Temple. His eyes were bloodshot. After going through so much, although everyone believed that Su-Yi would be fine, the Overlord sect was not to be trifled with. They would rather be killed than humiliated by the Long family. Moreover, the Long family had buried their sect leader in the core of the earth. Everyone could not wait for the revenge and the surging battle intent. Right now, everyone wanted to destroy the Long family first before rescuing Su-Yi. The ferocious, murderous aura condensed into a huge light wave and was released along the space. Roar! In the space, a terrifying demonic aura swept across the land. The energy led by the Green Emperor had already caused the entire Golden Dragon space to ripple. Bang! Oh no! The people from a Myriad Sword Alliance have arrived at the Chaos Territory and are coming ashore. The disciples on guard informed Merciless West through the communication jade. Immediately, Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy's faces darkened as they spoke to the Beast Emperors. "Everyone, we did not go to the Myriad Sword Alliance. Instead, they came to us," Merciless West shouted angrily. Then, with a terrifying energy, the energy reverberated in the Golden Dragon's space. "Mother asterisk her, how dare the Myriad Sword Alliance come to my Chaos realm? It seems like the Long family is faster than us. It's only been a few days, and the bastard from the Long family are already here. They're trying to kill us all. Kill these humans. Let's rescue Master first." Roar! The crowd was enraged, and the roars of the beasts shook the sky. In the vast space of the Golden Dragon, torrential demonic aura surged into the heavens and earth. Many demonic beasts directly transformed into their true forms, spreading out their gigantic bodies. Luster filled the air, demonic aura swept out, and terrifying energy stretched across the heavens and earth. In an instant, the Golden Dragon space seemed to have returned to the primordial world. The space was filled with the shadows of beasts, and their roars shook the world. "Go! Kill those bastards and avenge Su-Yi." Merciless West gave the order and glanced at Impermanence Fairy behind her. Immediately, all the monsters and warriors present roared towards the sky. The smell of alcohol filled the air, and his killing intent became even more violent. All of a sudden, a swarm of people and beasts broke through the golden dragon space like a swarm of locusts and headed straight for the coastline of the Chaos Realm. At this moment, the people from the Green Cloud Hall who were blocking the way had already leaped into the air. Susu stood at the front, her face covered with frost, the long sword in her hand wrapped in the light of vital chi. Susu pointed her sword at the leader of the Myriad Sword Alliance and said, "You're the ones who killed Su-E. How dare you come here? Do you think our Chaos Realm is made of mud? Kill all the Myriad Dao bastards. Avenge the sect leader. Kill. Die, you lackeys of the Long family." The eyes of the people from the Green Cloud Hall were bloodshot. When they heard that Su-E had died tragically in the hands of the Myriad Sword Alliance, they immediately released their vital chi, and a violent wind blew towards them. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of people erupted at the same time. They shouted loudly, and the void rippled like a raging tide. When the Myriad Sword Alliance saw that the people from the Green Cloud Hall were ready to die, they hurriedly said, "Wait, wait, which one of you has a say in the Bawang sect?" It would have been better if they had not said this. When she heard this, Susu's face turned even colder. She shouted angrily, "What? Can't the vice-sect leader of the Bawang sect have a say? Bastard, you won't stop until you destroy my sect. Go to hell." Susu shouted coldly. In an instant, Susu attacked with all her strength. A terrifying wind attribute attack burst forth in an instant. Under the terrifying energy vortex, violent wind blades swept toward the people from the Myriad Sword Alliance. Spatial cracks spread and formed in the void. Tens of thousands of people attacked the Myriad Sword Alliance's less than 10,000 people at the same time. The sound of explosions resounded in the heavens and the earth, and the light from the explosions instantly illuminated the world. Roar! The tens of thousands of people roared in unison, and their roars were like a violent storm. On the other side, the Myriad Sword Alliance's experts who had come to land seemed to have the intention of dodging. The vital chi vortex under their feet suddenly appeared, and they moved swiftly, drawing mysterious arcs in the air. For a moment, the tens of thousands of people were like headless flies in front of the Myriad Sword Alliance's experts. Most of their attacks were neutralized by the experts from the Myriad Sword Alliance. As expected of the Myriad Sword Alliance's top talents in the Heavenly Barbarian realm. However, you're still going to die today. Since you've killed Su-E, none of you can leave the Chaos Realm alive. Susu was shocked when she saw that the martial artists in the sky were attacking without any purpose. Most of their attacks were ineffective. She shouted at the Myriad Sword Alliance's leader. Bam! The moment Susu flicked the long sword in her hand, the Myriad Sword Alliance's leader waved his long robe, and his huge body stood in front of everyone. His strength of the origin domain realm instantly suppressed everyone. At the same time, Susu's long sword disappeared. The expert's tiger eyes glowed as he said angrily, "What are you fighting for? I told you to get the person in charge to come out and talk." Roar! As soon as he finished speaking, an angry roar broke the clamor from afar. A vast group of black figures appeared out of nowhere, and the majestic energy of heaven and earth occupied the void. Those who did not know would think that night had suddenly fallen. The sun and moon were obscured, and the void was dark. Under the shocked gaze of the Myriad Sword Alliance, the overwhelming number of figures charged toward them. Merciless West, who was in the lead, had red eyes and was brimming with battle intent. What a powerful aura! These people's cultivation isn't too high, but what's up with this pressure? The mountain-like figure on the opposite side shocked everyone present. Not only the Myriad Sword Alliance, but many people from the Ash Cloud Palace had not seen the legendary Beast Emperor for a long time. The Beast Emperor was born, and it roared proudly in the sky. The Green Emperor, who had transformed into his true form, the Sounding Serpent, was over 10,000 feet long. His lifelike scales whistled in the sky, and his eyes shone brightly. Just his violent, demonic aura alone was enough to intimidate everyone present. Myriad Sword Alliance. I don't know who gave you the courage. How dare you come to the Chaos Realm? Are you tired of living? Merciless West's fierce gaze landed on the faces of everyone from the Myriad Sword Alliance. When he thought about how Sue-E was suppressed under the Myriad Sword Mountain by these people, his battle intent began to boil and his blood began to boil. Merciless West, the leader of the Myriad Sword Alliance, seemed to have heard of Suicidal Yama's fame, and he quickly rushed out from the crowd. Looking at the Beast Emperor across the sky, the expert cleared his throat and said, "It seems like you're the only one who can speak here." Chapter 2407. Looking around, Shi Wuqing, whose eyes were bloodshot, slightly raised his chin and looked around. Other than the people from Ash Cloud Palace, who were overflowing with killing intent, the Myriad Sword Alliance didn't seem to have done anything. This was strange. Did the Myriad Sword Alliance not fight back? If the Myriad Sword Alliance fought back, the Ash Cloud Palace would have lost a lot of people. Suddenly, Merciless West's furious roar slowed down. He calmed down and looked at Suning. Bawang Sek's great consecrator, Merciless West. What do you want to say? Wuching. Wu Chang Fairy's beautiful eyebrows relaxed. She took a step forward worriedly. Merciless West slowly shook his head. He gently reached out his right hand and pressed it on Yu Chiohan's palm. His slightly yellow cheeks were ashen. "It's good that you can talk. I have something to discuss with you. Can we step aside? We don't have much time. Think about it yourself." The Myriad Sword Alliance's experts looked down. They were obviously afraid that someone would come. "You can't go. The Myriad Sword Alliance's bastards harmed Master. Is this how you talk when you're talking? You're too arrogant. Sir Consecrator, you can't let anything happen to you. Despicable humans, what other tricks do you want to play?" The Beast Emperor's eyes were blood red. They opened their bloody mouths and emitted a fierce light that made people's hearts tremble. Lei Yunhe, Huang Jian, and the others persuaded Merciless West not to be fooled. "Sir Consecrator, there's something fishy about this. Why don't we go with you?" Huang Jian and Nangong Mingyue stood behind Merciless West. The Myriad Sword Alliance's people looked very strange. They didn't kill or rob. Instead, they looked for someone to discuss. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Merciless West opened the wine jug and took a big gulp. He made a prompt decision and said, "Everyone from Bawang's sect, listen up. Before I come back, keep an eye on these people. If anything happens, kill them without mercy. Protect them even if you have to risk your life." "Yes, Sir Consecrator," everyone shouted at the top of their lungs. "Chila." Merciless West put the flagon back to her waist. A clap of thunder resounded, and the air rippled. Merciless West's figure streaked across the sky. Her phantom overlapped as she spoke coldly. "If you want to talk, then come with me." The leader of the Myriad Sword Alliance looked at the Beast Emperors hovering in the sky, as if he was in a primitive void. He couldn't help but shudder. It was strange that such a world of demons could coexist peacefully with the people of the Bawang sect. He shifted his gaze in the direction Merciless West had gone. Light surged beneath his feet, and a sharp arc of sword light leaped out, following behind with a mighty momentum. The two of them left, leaving behind a faint white trail in the sky. Only the void of the coast of the Chaos region was left. The shadows of super experts could be seen everywhere. Shaowan's myriad Dao sect experts had solemn gazes. They knew that it was useless to say anything in the face of the people from the Bawang sect, who were filled with murderous intent. Everyone's aura froze, and their bloodthirsty gazes shot out. Now, even the slightest movement could cause a huge wave. Everyone's gaze flickered, and the sound of people inhaling cold air could be heard one after another. Half a day passed in an instant. Just as Wu Chang Fairy and the others couldn't help but want to look for Merciless West. Whoosh, whoosh. Two rays of light connected the sky and the earth, one after the other. Merciless West landed beside Wu Chang Fairy and said to the Myriad Sword Alliance's expert, "Since that's the case, we'll do as you say. However, if there's any discrepancy between you and the truth, you'll be executed on the spot." The expert nodded solemnly and waved his hand. Xiao Wan's myriad Dao sect experts spread out at the same time, and a glowing rope floated out and tied him up. People of the Bawang sect retreat. Merciless West order at the same time. Seeing the expert using them as hostages, the Beast Emperor's eyes trembled. They transformed into their human forms, and the shocking pressure in the air dissipated a lot. Everyone, stay where you are. Those who are elders and above, follow me back. Without further ado, Shi Wuqing led the Myriad Sword Alliance's leader back to the Golden Dragon space. They were back in the Golden Dragon's secret realm. In the Golden Dragon's secret land, Shi Wuqing explained to everyone that the Myriad Sword Alliance's powerhouse was the second in command in his sect, Duge Yi. He was entrusted by Duge Hen and Long Kuei to come here. In Draconis's plan, the Myriad Sword Alliance was in charge of destroying the Chaos Realm. However, Duge Hen and Long Kuei did not want to follow Draconis's instructions. Therefore, they needed the Myriad Sword Alliance and the Chaos Realm to put on a show for Draconis. Within 3 months, the Myriad Sword Alliance would do their best to help the Bawang sect get through this difficult time. At the same time, they would destroy Draconis's path to becoming a god. Duge Hen and Long Kuei are so kind? Then why did they harm Su Yi in the first place? Take off your pants and fart. Wuchang Fairy's eyes were cold as she looked at Duge Yi in front of her. She did not believe him at all. At this time, Duge Yi's hands were tied. He was barely able to form a seal, and a token slowly floated out from his chest. It rotated slowly with mysterious runes and surging light. The Swordmaster token. Wuchang Fairy recognized the token and looked at Merciless West in shock. The latter nodded her head. Elder Hen was afraid that you wouldn't believe him, so he asked me to tie myself up and hand over the Swordmaster token to you. Longxing is too cruel, and the Myriad Sword Alliance only has ourselves to blame for our current predicament. However, we can't make the same mistake again. Hearing this, all the Beast Emperors and humans, including the Green Emperor, turned grim as they sized Duge Yi up with their cold eyes. Su Yi had been harmed by them. How could they still trust the Myriad Sword Alliance? Everyone was frowning. Sincerity can change at any time. The human heart is the most unreliable thing. I just want to know how Su Yi is doing. Wuchang Fairy's face was cold as she approached step by step. Her strong killing intent was not weak even in front of Duge Yi, whose cultivation was much higher than hers. Duge Yi nodded his head and said, "Don't worry about that. Although Su Yi is still in the Earth's core, the Myriad Sword Alliance's Supreme Elder is already thinking of a way to save him. If Su Yi is really dead, we'll be digging our own graves by coming here to negotiate." Upon hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief and their expressions relaxed. Merciless West looked at everyone and whispered, "What do you think?" After a moment of silence, everyone present murmured, "This was an important decision. Any step could cause the Bawang sect to fall into eternal damnation." Wuchang Fairy said faintly, "Since it's an act, we must complete the act. Other than the Golden Dragon space, the Chaos Territory will be facing a great disaster. Be mentally prepared, everyone." Merciless West took a sip of wine and wiped the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were cold as she said softly, "There's no other way. This is already the smallest loss. I think it's worth it to exchange the Chaos Territory for peace. Yes, it's worth it." Chapter 2408. If we can save Master, I'm willing to exchange the world for it. Yes, as long as Sect Master is alive, we can get it back. The Beast Emperor roared, and the humans agreed. Instantly, the dozens of people present seemed to have made up their minds and nodded. Since that's the case, let's do it this way. Since IE isn't here, we have to make some decisions. Impermanence Fairy said coldly as she looked at Merciless West. For a moment, everyone showed an expression as if they were facing death calmly. Under the discussion, the Myriad Sword Alliance would mine Sword Mountain and rescue Su Yi. On the surface, they would put on an act with the Bawang sect in the Chaos region. but in reality, they would use the transportation resources of the aristocratic families to allow the Bawang sect to move between the Sacred Mountain, demon-subduing sect, limitless sect, and Juqian Palace. After listening to Duguye's plan, the Yin family would not have to worry about being attacked by the Immortal Sword sect, Shinhu sect, and Gemini sect. The Sky Dragon sect and Sacred Mountain were equally matched, and Endless Sky City and Thunderfire Temple were old rivals, so the Bawang sect would not be able to interfere. Finally, the demon-subduing sect, which was besieged by the continent's forces, Juqian Palace, and Limitless sect, which were attacked by the Long family. After the discussion, the Bawang sect would rescue the demon-subduing sect as soon as possible, gather the Overlord Legion and Sky Demon Army, and head toward the Long family together. Within a month, the Sky Barbarian continent had been turned upside down. Every continent in the world was filled with the flames of war, and the people were in a terrible situation. The sky of the Sky Barbarian continent was dyed red with blood, and the sun and moon were overturned. Every morning, the sky of the Sky Barbarian continent was gray, and dark clouds spread from the Nirvana Dragon Palace to every corner of the Sky Barbarian continent. If one could overlook the entire world like a god, the peaceful Sky Barbarian continent would have turned into a hell filled with corpses and rivers of blood. The Chaos region, under the direction of the Bawang sect and the Myriad Sword Alliance, was also in ruins. The vast and boundless coastline was shattered, and the corpses of spirit beasts in the adjacent Blue Sea and Endless Sky Sea region were strewn everywhere. Their blood dyed the waves red, and their bones connected to the Sky Sea. The entire Chaos region was like a chaotic paradise. The few main cities in the Chaos region, which had been relatively orderly in the past, were all destroyed. The flames of war continued unabated, and the stench of blood lingered for thousands of miles. In the deep forests, in the valleys, and on the city walls, there were corpses of warriors who had fled or rebelled from the sects in the Chaos field. In the void, Merciless West had barely closed her eyes during this period of time. With bloodshot eyes, Shi Wuqing looked down at the endless black clouds. All kinds of screams and wails lingered in the air like the cries of ghosts. Shi Wuqing's heart was bleeding. Boom! In the distance, a circular beam of light shot up into the sky from Nine Star City. In the blink of an eye, it exploded, and a majestic wind blasted the city into pieces. Many prisoners and warriors who could not react in time were turned into dust and scattered in the air. The most familiar sounds that filled Merciless West's ears were the sounds of flesh and blood being torn apart and explosions. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, she looked into the distance and saw a few more cities falling. Blood turned into rivers that surrounded the cities, and large areas of mountains were directly cut off. Vegetation was overturned, and the ground caved in. The Chaos region, which also had a long history, was slowly being worn down by such a terrifying attack. It was like a high-spirited young man being worn down by the wind and rain into a crippled old man. Sigh. With a long sigh, Merciless West could not bear to watch any longer. At this moment, the sound of hundreds of yuan qi tearing could be heard from the west. The sonic boom resounded through the sky, piercing through the sky and rushing into the clouds. Rumble. Ancient and ferocious auras intertwined with each other, and a huge space vortex formed in the void. Demonic aura filled the air, and the sword was merciless. Noticing the wind and thunder that were fighting back and forth, Merciless West knew that it was a routine operation in the Chaos region every day. In order to make the act more realistic, the people of the Myriad Sword Alliance and the Bawang sect were crazily fighting each other to train each other. However, in the boundless space of the Chaos region, the mountains were blood-red and collapsed. The majestic Bawang sect's main city in the past had also turned into ruins. As far as the eye could see, the Chaos region, which was full of holes and suffering, was simply a disaster for humans. Merciless West, who was trying to get drunk, squinted her eyes and saw two rays of light flying toward her. In the scarlet light, Merciless West recognized that it was her wife, Yuchihan, Impermanence Fairy, and Dugi, who had been released by her. The two of them hovered in the air and stood in front of Merciless West. Both of them had ugly expressions on their faces. The picturesque scenery had turned into a mess. Corpses were everywhere, and bones were piled up into mountains. Anyone who saw it would be in a terrible mood. It should be about time, right? Draconis shouldn't have any doubts now that we've put on such a show. Merciless West lowered her eyes and shook her head. Impermanence Fairy nodded and said to Dugi, "The Death Warriors and Rogue Cultivators in the Chaos region have been captured and killed. It's only been a month, and we're already running out of manpower. We'll need you to provide us with manpower for the next month." Dugi nodded with a gloomy expression. He knew that the Chaos region had really paid a huge price this time. However, there was no place in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean that was peaceful. Duguyi raised his eyebrows and said softly, "The two of you, leave the rest to me. The Myriad Sword Alliance will capture people from all the continents and send them to their deaths. We have to put on a good show. I'll gather the rest for you. The next step is to head to the other sects to provide support." Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy looked at each other, and their gazes turned cold. In a month's time, the Chaos region had opened up a huge spatial passage with the help of the Myriad Sword Alliance. Now, it was extremely convenient for the millions of people in the Chaos region to travel to the other continents. With Dugiye's intelligence, Merciless West also knew that the Taxing sect and Limitless sect had been besieged by the other forces in the continent. They were both mentally and physically exhausted. The Heavenly Dragon sect and the Holy Mountain had been fighting one after another. First, the Heavenly Dragon sect had besieged the Holy Mountain. Now, the Holy Mountain was being pushed back. The Holy Mountain had already attacked the Heavenly Dragon sect's headquarters. That kid from the Xiaohong house is really something. It's amazing that he could recover so quickly after being massacred by Su Yi. Shi Wuqing's eyes were filled with admiration. Thinking about how the Xiaohong house's true body had been the heaven-suppressing metal stone in his previous life, it was only a matter of time before the Xiaohong house could bring the sacred mountain to the peak. He was no longer surprised. "I just didn't expect the Immortal Sword sect, Shenhu's legacy, and the Gemini sect to be able to delay the Yun family for so long," Impermanence Fairy said doubtfully. Chapter 2409. Dugiye's eyes glimmered, speaking softly. The Divine Tiger continent was destroyed not long ago. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. The Immortal Sword sect is the #1 force on the Immortal Sword continent. Although they are related to our Myriad Sword Alliance, we can't expose ourselves. Not to mention, the Gemini sect is the biggest force in the Blue Sea. 3 continents attacking the Yun family at the same time. How can it not be scary? Hearing this, Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy exchanged a glance, then turned to Di. The Long family personally dealt with the Heavenly Command Palace and Immeasurable Gate. What's the situation now? Hearing the question, Dugiye's voice turned gloomy. After some hesitation, he answered, "The Heavenly Command Palace has the Immeasurable Gate as their shield. It's still acceptable." The Heavenly Command Palace also sent a large number of soul manipulation masters to form a soul manipulation array to protect the Immeasurable Gate. I heard that the Immeasurable Gate is still holding on. If it's destroyed, the Heavenly Command Palace will be in even more danger. Hearing this, Merciless West's heart skipped a beat. Her face turned deathly pale, cold sweat trickling down her back. The Heavenly Command Palace, Chaos Realm, and Demon Subduing Gate were Su Yi's main camps. If any of these 3 forces were in danger, the Long family's battle would be fraught with difficulties. Where's Palace Master Xiaoman? Has she come out? I haven't seen her. Merciless West sighed softly. Han Wulong can be considered to have done his best, being able to fight until now. Duguyi pursed his lips. In this 1 month, the 10 Directions continent had undergone great changes. He said softly, "I don't know how the Long family found out that the Demon Subduing Gate is also Su Yi's front line. Before they attacked the heavenly command palace, they sent a small portion of their people to the demon subduing gate. Went to the demon subduing gate. What's the situation now? Merciless West's eyes widened in anger. She became agitated. Her sharp gaze fell on Dougie. Impermanence fairy beside her turned pale, her eyes quivering. The Heavenly Demon Legion and Overlord Legion were still in the demon subduing gate. The demon subduing gate was destroyed, their blood flowing to the east. In this period of time, Dougie had also realized the importance of the demon subduing sect to the Bawang sect. He said in a low voice, "Luckily, only a small portion of the Long family's people went. With the demon subduing sect's foundation, they shouldn't be in too much danger yet." Instantly, Merciless West's eyes were filled with murderous intent as she pulled Impermanence Fairy back into the Golden Dragon Mystery Realm. There was no time to explain. Now that a month had passed, anything could happen. The Chaos Realm's army is now on the move. Leave behind a third of them to guard the Chaos region. The rest of you, follow me to the demon subduing sect. Shi Wuqing's voice was released, rolling and drifting to every corner of the field. The time for the great battle had finally arrived. Immediately, everyone shouted loudly, and the depths of their souls trembled. A wave of hot-blooded heroism that was enough to make goosebumps spread through the air. Everyone stared at the place where Shi Wuqing was and shouted loudly, "Avenge Master! Protect the Chaos region! Avenge the sect leader! Reinforce the demon subduing sect! Attack the Long family and protect the Heaven Berserkers!" Bang! Bang! 3 consecutive beast-like roars of anger circled above everyone's heads. Although Dougi's face was expressionless, his heart was in turmoil. Su Yi is not here, but the Chaos region is still so united. This kid is really a genius. Dougie was certain that Su Yi's group was more popular in the Heaven Berserkers. If it were not for the fact that the majority of the people had surrendered in terms of strength and power, the Long family would not have caused such a bloodbath in the Heaven Berserkers. Dougi's eyes trembled. He was glad that Dougahin and Long Kuei had finally made the right decision. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. Noticing that everyone was preparing, Dougie went up to Merciless West and said, "Brother Wuqing, I will watch over the Chaos region for you. On the day of attacking the dragon, we will fight side by side." Merciless West nodded and reminded Dougie to pay attention to the matter of saving Su Yi. Su Yi was the most important factor in attacking the dragon. "Let's go." Pulling Impermanence Fairy, Merciless West rushed out of the Golden Dragon Mystery Realm. Millions of people stopped in front of a huge spatial tunnel. Behind them, millions of Chaos Region soldiers were red in the face. They were filled with murderous intent. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the sunlight was boundless. Dark demonic aura swept across the sky. Countless rays of energy shot across the sky. A huge vortex gradually activated the spatial tunnel. Merciless West was moved. She said, "Without the 10,000 Swords Alliance, how could it be so easy to build this spatial tunnel that can transport millions of people in a month? I'm sure Su Yi will agree with our decision. The Long family will definitely be captured." Her eyes narrowed, and a chilling murderous intent appeared between her eyebrows. The demon-subduing sect and the Chaos region had arrived. "Little dragons of the Long family, I will show you the power of your grandpa Beast Emperor." Among the Beast Emperors, the Devouring Spirit Emperor and the others had gloomy faces. Their eyes shone brightly, as if they could tear the Long family into pieces with just a breath. "Let's go." Above the tunnel, a huge circle of light rippled. Like a miracle, it instantly covered millions of people. In an instant, everyone in the Chaos region seemed insignificant in front of the divine light. The next moment, they disappeared on the spot, as if they had evaporated. After a month, the already barren Yuzhou became even more gloomy. Blood flowed everywhere. Inside the great demon forest, There were shocking roars and continuous sounds of mountain explosions everywhere. Rocks were flipped and forests were destroyed. Living beings fled the continent as if they were fleeing for their lives. Yuzhou had become synonymous with a dead city. Large areas of desolate land were scattered with the corpses of unknown demonic beasts. They overlapped and formed a small mountain. Similar to the Chaos Realm, the cities in the Serenity Prefecture had been reduced to ruins. Energies shot up into the sky from all directions, and crackling sounds could be heard from all directions. In the Yuzhou continent, the most magnificent demon-subduing sect was hidden in the smoke of war. The mountain ridges were shattered, and the slopes were sharper. The black city that originally stood between the heavens and the earth was now on the verge of collapse. Bang! In the depths of a lonely mountain, in the demon-subduing sect. At this moment, Qi Feihong, Qi Jiuzhen, and Qi Dongjue were leading 3 legions to resist. The Overlord Legion guarded the east, the Celestial Demon Legion guarded the west, and the demon-subduing sect guarded the east. The north was next to the Great Demon Mountain Range, so there was no need to worry. Qi Feihong's eyes were dark as he stood in the air above the plaza. Over the past month, he had become even more spirited. He stood in the center of the plaza, constantly receiving information from Qi Dongjue and Qi Jiuzhen and issuing orders to the demon-subduing sect. Chapter 24:10. To Qi Feihong's surprise, there were still so many evil loose cultivators and fleeing cultivators after the rebel forces in Yuzhou were annihilated. How many people did the Long family transfer from other continents to wipe out my demon-subduing sect? Qi Feihong's eyes were gloomy as he casually waved his hand and shot out a beam of light. Immediately, a cultivator in the distance who wanted to launch a sneak attack was destroyed like tofu, silently dissipating from the world without even a trace of blood. Bang! Qi Feihong moved again. His thin and short body streaked across the air as he charged into the sky with the big tiger palm. When he saw Qi Jiuzhen and Qi Dongjue in the east, Qi Feihong withdrew his palm force. "What's the situation?" Qi Feihong shouted. Qi Jiuzhen saw Qi Feihong, and before he could say anything, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as white as paper, and his veins were bulging. It was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries. Jiuzhen, Qi Feihong, and Qi Dongjue shouted at the same time. Jiuzhen shook his head and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Immediately, he reported the situation to Qi Feihong. "You're saying that your father defected to the Long family?" Qi Feihong's face turned gloomy and his eyes trembled. Qi Dongjue quickly channeled Yuan Qi into Qi Jiuzhen and said seriously, "Jiuzhen, is this true?" The Scarlet Stellar Leopard was Qi Jiuzhen's father. Qi Jiuzhen naturally didn't want to smear his father's name. However, this was the truth. Qi Jiuzhen, who had been guarding the demon-subduing sect, had escaped with heavy injuries while the Scarlet Stellar Leopard was nowhere to be seen. What other reason could there be? No wonder there are so many cultivators coming to the demon-subduing sect. Qi Feihong's eyes widened in anger as his dry lips twitched. Half a month ago, the demon-subduing sect had already wiped out all the cultivators on the continent. Half a month later, all the rogue cultivators in the demon-subduing sect came out of nowhere and attacked the demon-subduing sect like locusts. At the beginning, Qi Feihong was still very puzzled. Where did all of this come from? If someone was informing the Long family, then it would make sense. This bastard actually defected to the enemy. Qi Dongjue roared angrily. He had long realized that the Scarlet Astral Leopard was a cunning person and that Uncle Snake was a hypocrite. Now that he realized it, it was too late. After being healed by Qi Dongjue and Qi Feihong at the same time, Qi Jiuzhen's face regained its color, and his eyes were bloodshot. "Are you talking about me?" A muffled voice echoed in the void. Following the source of the voice, Qi Feihong and Qi Dongjue's expressions turned solemn. Above the mountain range in the north, a majestic golden light poured down in torrents. The towering trees were uprooted like cannonballs, and beams of thick and thin light shot out from the forest. Scarlet astral leopard. Chi Fei Hong roared. As it turned out, the person who had come was the scarlet astral leopard. Behind him, 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers of the Dragon Legion stood proudly. The soldiers wore dragon helmets on their heads, and their bodies were covered in lifelike dragon scales. Waves of terrifying, ferocious light shot out from their eyes. Just from their towering muscles, one could tell that these experts with the golden dragon bloodline were strong, so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. If they were to fight, they would definitely be an existence that could take on 100 people by themselves. These 5,000 to 6,000 Long Ben army soldiers were like iron towers hovering in the void. Golden light shone in all directions, and their killing, intense sword. Roar! The Long Ben army roared at the same time. In an instant, layers of golden light overlapped, and it was like the surging waves of the sea. It was just a soft roar, but there was already a golden dragon in the sky, like a sun hanging high in the sky. The desolate aura of a divine beast swept out, and a destructive force filled the world like a hurricane. So strong, Chi Fei Hong and the rest's eyes narrowed, and their frail bodies began to tremble. The destructive aura spread from their limbs and bones. This kind of destructive aura was definitely strong. Just Chi Fei Hong and the rest were already trembling, let alone the rest of the demon subduing sect. Roar! From the east, south, and west, beastly roars rang out continuously. The gradually shrinking crowd was moving towards the demon subduing square. Chi Fei Hong's face turned even uglier. It seemed like the Sky Demon Corps, Overlord Legion, and Sky Demon Corps could no longer withstand the continuous attacks, and were closing in on the encirclement. In less than a moment, the demon subduing sect members in the center of the encirclement turned serious. Their auras spread out rapidly, forming a huge encirclement to defend against the destructive attacks coming from all directions. Bang, bang, bang. East, west, north, and south had already formed an encirclement. Although the demons subduing sect members in the middle had the advantage in numbers, their morale had been greatly reduced. The destructive aura, accompanied by the rolling golden dragon's might, swept through the world. A terrifying pressure pressed down on everyone's hearts like heavy stones, making it hard for them to breathe. In the surroundings, millions of eyes were focused on the Golden Army on the northern mountain peak. These 5,000 to 6,000 people were definitely the core of the entire scene. Their every action would affect the life and death of the demon's subduing sect. The scarlet astral leopard's eyes were filled with pride. After surrendering, he finally revealed his true colors and nodded towards the 3 people in the square. With the support of the Long family, the scarlet astral leopard finally regained his former glory. His arrogant demeanor was revealed once again. The demon-subduing sect raised you and treated you as their master. How dare you surrender to the dragon bandits? Chi Dongjue roared. As a senior and a brother, he found it even harder to accept the scarlet astral leopard's betrayal. Chi Dongjue, you have a cheek to talk about me? The moment Su Yi arrived, you surrendered faster than anyone else. Why? Is he your ancestor? You've completely thrown away the face of the demon subduing sect. You. Chi Dongjue's face flushed red, and a trace of anger shot out from his eyes. Without waiting for Chi Dongjue to speak, the scarlet astral leopard continued to berate Chi Fei Hong. I've been in power in the demon-subduing sect for 10 to 20 years. What right do you have to leave without a word, and I have to take over? Now that I'm back, I have to hand it over to you? Old fogey, the demon-subduing sect had already surrendered to the Long family before you came to power. Who is the traitor? Chi Fei Hong. You bully the weak and cower in fear of the strong. Impudent. In the vast space, Chi Fei Hong roared. Instantly, his killing intent surged like a tidal wave. The scarlet astral leopard's words had definitely hit him in the ribs. In the turbulent space, Chi Fei Hong's figure charged towards the northern mountain peak. Instantly, the space in front of him collapsed, and the space trembled. Following a shrill cry from Chi Fei Hong, Chi Feihong flew back like a cannonball, landing in the middle of the square. It turned out that when the Long Bin army's energy surged at the same time, a formless golden dragon had charged out. Under such an apocalyptic attack, Chi Feihong was like a weakling. Even his resistance became so weak. Pucci. In less than a second, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, Chi Feihong spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell backward. Without needing anyone's help, Chi Feihong stood up strong and stared at the Long Bin army and the scarlet astral leopard. He gritted his teeth, and his killing intent surged. On the other three sides, mocking and mocking sounds could be heard. Chapter 2411. These rogue cultivators from different continents had been bullied too much by these large sections. Now that they had the chance, all of them wanted to take revenge. Old fogies of demon subduing sect. To think that you would have such a day. Today I will kill all of you. Aren't you very strong? In front of the dragon god, you are all ants. Trash. Trash. Today is the day you die. Demon subduing sect will be ours from now on. Ha ha ha. Countless evil rogue cultivators ridiculed them from all directions. Their fiery and vulgar gazes lingered on the female cultivators in the field. All kinds of obscenities and shameful laughter drifted out. Shut up. All of you shut up. Facing such humiliation, Chi Jiuzhen frowned and led the crowd to curse back. At this point, Demon Subduing Sect also knew that today was not a good day. But even if they lost, they could not lose face. Losing to the Long family was one thing, but being tainted by these lowly cultivators was something that Demon Subduing Sect could not accept. Boom! A golden light that could destroy the world lit up the sky once again. In the bathhouse, one of the Long Bin army's commanders roared, "Those who submit to me will prosper. Those who oppose me will perish. Demon Subduing Sect members, surrender, and you will have a chance to live." At that moment, the Dragon Guard army's command was like a tsunami, and the earth-shattering roar shook everyone's soul. Under such a huge battle formation, everyone who wanted to resist began to feel a little scared. But there was no turning back. Submitting to the Long family was impossible. At this moment, the Scarlet Stellar Leopard noticed Chi Jiuzhen's injuries. He walked to the front of the Long Bin army's commander and said awkwardly, "Sir, that is my daughter. Can you make an exception?" Hearing the Scarlet Stellar Leopard's pleading, Chi Jiuzhen was even more furious. She screamed at the Scarlet Stellar Leopard, "Father, I am ashamed of you. I will use my entire life to repay you for what you did today. The relationship between father and daughter is over. I don't have a family like you who would betray your own master." Being scolded by his own daughter, the Scarlet Stellar Leopard's eyes turned cold. As if everything had been removed, his gloomy face was like cold steel. He said angrily, "Since that is the case, I will fulfill your wish. Kill. Kill the Demon Subduing Sect members. A new Demon Subduing Sect will be established." Glancing at the Scarlet Meteorite Leopard, the Dragon Guard commander curled his lips and said, "As you wish." "Huh." Everyone was shocked. The moment he finished speaking, the spear in the Dragon Guard commander's hand was like a dragon. Under the unstoppable destructive energy, the Scarlet Astral Leopard's heart was pierced by the tip of the spear. At this moment, the Scarlet's eyes were filled blood. Scarlet Stellar Leopard. Scarlet Stellar. Scarlet. Demon. Two. With a loud roar, the Long Bin army's commander's spear flickered with electricity. The Scarlet Stellar Leopard didn't even have time to wail before he disappeared into thin air. Light mixed with a faint blood aura filled the air. A powerful expert of a generation had fallen just like that. "Father." Chi Jiuzhen, who was still speaking righteously, broke down instantly. Although he hated the act of defecting to the enemy, he couldn't accept seeing his father die in front of him. Chi Jiuzhen's expression changed drastically. He cried and ran towards the Scarlet Stellar Leopard, but he was pulled back by Chi Feihong and Chi Dongjue. Chi Jiuzhen, who was already in tears, was on the verge of breaking down. His heart-wrenching cries echoed throughout the demon-subduing square. Fearful gazes looked at the 5,000 to 6,000 Dragon Guard soldiers in the north. This was a show of strength. At this moment, the demon-subduing sect, heaven-subduing sect, and Overlord Legion were already fearful of this iron tower-like army. Everyone present was shocked and didn't dare to step forward. Demon-subduing sect and heaven-subduing sect are on the same side. They only have themselves to blame. Everyone has the right to punish them. The Long Ben Army's commander sneered as he looked at Chi Feihong and Chi Dongjue, whose expressions were extremely ugly. Although the three armies had more people than the east, west, and south sides, their morale was already low. Long family's thieves don't talk nonsense. A thief pretending to be a thief. Haven't you gotten tired of it after so many years? Chi Feihong shouted at the top of his lungs, his eyes wide with anger. In an instant, the Long Ben Army's commander's face darkened. His tiger eyes were filled with killing intent. He said indifferently, Chi Feihong, you and I are old friends. Today, an old friend will send you on your way. Long Ben Army, charge. Roar. The rogue cultivators from the east, west, and south sides swallowed their saliva. All their gazes were focused on the north side. All they heard was an earth-shattering dragon roar. In a vast space, a golden light transformed into a golden dragon of destruction. 5,000 figures merged together and charged towards the center of the demon-subduing square. Bam! In the golden light, 5,000 to 6,000 people brandished their weapons at the same time. The airflow in the air instantly became chaotic. A vortex appeared in the sky, causing one's soul to feel uneasy. Charge! Kill that old man from demon-subduing sect. The rogue cultivators shouted incessantly. Then, like a plague, they spread out in all directions. All sorts of weapon lights landed in the center of the demon-subduing sect. The entire battlefield erupted. There was no way to avoid it. They might as well fight it out. Third Army, counterattack. Chi Feihong's gaze was stern as he commanded in all directions. Fight! Heaven-subduing sect. All beasts join the battle. Overlord Martial sect. Guard the demons. Charge! Brothers of Soul sect. Bring out the skills you learned in Heavenly Command Palace. Demon-subduing sect can't show any weakness. We've been humiliated for 10,000 years. This time we have to be strong. The sound waves swept out like a storm. Millions of light figures intertwined together. A huge amount of Yuan Qi light instantly enveloped the entire space. No one would have thought that the barren demon-subduing sect would be stuffed to the brim. Large numbers of martial artists fought in the storm of light. Their bodies turned into willow leaves that scattered with the wind. Some were even turned into ashes. In the chaotic space, the 5,000 people's golden dragon-light formation was like a hot knife through butter. No one could stop it. A tyrannical aura spread out in the vast space. Large numbers of martial artists died upon contact. Chi Feihong and Chi Dongjue also noticed this tyrannical power. Compared to the rogue cultivators, these 5,000 people were definitely the biggest killing machine on the battlefield. If they were allowed to move freely, the demon-subduing sect will be defeated very quickly. At that time, it would be useless even if they had more people. Dongjue worked together to delay the Long family. Chi Feihong gritted his teeth. His body shone brightly. His clothes were torn apart, revealing his strong muscles. Chi Feihong roared. His 9th-level origin ancestor strength exploded. Instantly, his eyes shone brightly as his demonic aura circulated. On the other side, Chi Dongjue's entire body was covered in red light. The two of them were like bulls, preparing to use their flesh to block the Long family's attack. Chapter 24:12. Old Sect Leader, I never thought that I would be able to fight alongside you in this life. Laughing wildly, Chi Dongjue's eyes shone brightly, and a wave of killing intent surged out from him. Chi Dongjue's body was protected by a red light, and behind him, a huge godly bull shadow was ready to attack. Chi Feihong's lips curled up slightly, and a mysterious white yuan chi light spread out from his body. A mysterious giant deer shadow appeared behind him, and its huge antlers were engraved with mysterious runes, aiming at the Long Ben army with unparalleled sharpness. You brat, you taught a plaything like the scarlet astral leopard, but you have some guts. From today onwards, I, Chi Feihong, acknowledge you. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Under the surging tide of the army, a light vortex appeared under their feet. Suddenly, wind and thunder rumbled, and as they looked up, red and white light shot towards the golden storm. Around them, millions of light rays shone, and martial artists fell one after another. But the most eye-catching thing was the battle between Chi Feihong, Chi Dongjue, and the Long Ben army. Above the dense void, the deer shadow rode on, and the godly bull roared at the sky. The roar shook the sky, and the void rumbled. The iron tower, like golden army, did not show any signs of weakness, and the blazing golden light outlined the outline of a golden dragon shadow. The lifelike dragon scales reflected a breathtaking light in the sky, and the pupils opened, and a violent golden storm rushed out from the depths of the pupils. Today, the demon-subduing sect will go down in history. Wash away the shame of the past. In the white light, Chi Feihong circulated his yuan qi, and a terrifying airflow blew his clothes up. Chi Feihong's face was solemn, and he stretched out his arms without fear. His fingers curled into claws, and his arms seemed to grow rapidly, and the huge deer shadow charged towards the golden dragon storm. Old sect leader, I will enter the demon-subduing sect in my next life. As the roar sounded, the deer shadow charged into the golden dragon formation, and Dong Ju's godly bull roared, and a terrifying energy wave blasted a huge hole in the sky. You don't know death. Those who block the path of the dragon, God, must all die. Within the golden dragon array, the leader of the powerhouses restrained his aura and waved his spear in a huge arc in the air. Immediately, the 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers of the Long Ben army looked cold and indifferent. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they thrust their spears forward. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a terrifying wave exploded, and heaven and earth exploded. The millions of living beings present felt as if they were witnessing the end of the world, and a golden light that resembled the sun shone from the depths of the heavens. Soon after, the sound of explosions continued to resound in the sky. It was as if the entire world was going to be blown apart. The dragon's shadow roared, radiating a dazzling light. Dragon scales that blotted out the sun appeared in the sky. Then, a golden beam of light shot up into the sky and returned to the northern slope. This person who is determined to die does have some skills. The leader stopped his spear and snorted coldly. The Long Ben army immediately stood in formation as if nothing had happened. At this moment, the light that enveloped the space below was hit by a huge shockwave. The unparalleled shockwave shook the space and caused thousands of ripples to appear. As far as the eye could see, there were black holes everywhere. The terrifying spatial ripples seemed to have swallowed thousands of living beings, opening their mouths wide and terrifying. The nearby martial artists all turned into countless pieces of flesh and blood. Amidst the endless waves of light, the horned deer and the divine ox howled in grief and immediately dissipated in the golden light. Chi Feihong, and Chi Dongjue each flew in two different directions, drawing 1,000-li-long arc in the air. Wherever they passed, tens of thousands of people were sent flying. The terrifying shockwave blasted the crowd, and the light that extended out sliced off the mountains in the distance. The earth shook, and the mountains shook, and the rivers surged. This kind of destructive aura caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. How could the Long family's joint attack be so strong? Could they still fight? It was not just the people from demon-subduing sect. Even the rogue cultivators' hearts were pounding. Sect leader, master. From the millions of people, a frail figure floated out and rushed to Qi Dongjue's side. Flesh and blood were torn apart, and bones were all that was left. Looking at Qi Dongjue, who was fighting for his life, Qi Jiuzhen trembled in fear. Pooh! In the distance, Qi Feihong stood up slowly. In terms of injuries, Qi Feihong's injuries were not much lighter than Qi Dongjue's. Qi Feihong's dangling left hand was forcefully pressed back down. His face was cold, and there was no trace of pain on his face. His muscles were torn apart, and his blood flowed freely. To an old man like him, there was no hindrance at all. Was Qi Feihong still the cowardly Qi Feihong from before? Although Qi Feihong's body was swaying unsteadily, there was no doubt that he had become a peerless expert in the hearts of the crowd. Who would have thought that the day would come when you, Qi Feihong, would come for you? The leader of the Long family narrowed his eyes and curled his lips. He knew that Qi Feihong and Qi Dongjue were like arrows at the end of their flight. He looked around and said, "Everyone from demon-subduing sect, surrender now, and we will spare your lives." This, instantly, everyone's eyes trembled. Even Qi Feihong and Qi Dongjue could not hold on. We're still going to hold on. Qi Feihong's eyes were completely deformed. His eyes were bloodshot, and his mouth was bulging. The moment he spoke, large amounts of blood spurted out. He said in a low voice, "No, don't surrender." Bang! The moment he opened his mouth, Qi Feihong's chest was covered in blood. It was scarlet, and it was as though he was soaked in a waterfall of blood. It was a shocking sight. Everyone's heart trembled once again. What kind of iron-blooded emotion was this? Suddenly, Qi Jiuzhen put down Qi Dongjue and came to Qi Feihong's side. He handed over the spiritual liquid left by Su Yi and said with a gloomy face, "Demon-subduing sect would rather live standing than die kneeling. If you surrender, I, Qi Jiuzhen, will not let you off even if I become a ghost." "Miss Jiuzhen, we will not surrender." "That's right. Old sect leader is already like this. How can we drag out an ignoble existence? Long family, kill me. How can the people of the sovereign of heaven's pride do such despicable things?" Looking at Qi Feihong's bloody appearance, everyone steeled their resolve. Over 1 million people shouted angrily with the will to die flashing across their eyes. Qi Jiuzhen held on to Qi Feihong tightly. She gasped for breath and said, "Old sect leader, Jiuzhen still wants to be a member of demon-subduing sect in my next life." His eyes were completely covered in blood. Qi Feihong looked at the crowd through the slit of his eyes. His blood-red lips twitched slightly as he said softly, "Good. Kid, this old man will fulfill his promise. I won't regret it in this life." Not expecting these people to be so stubborn, the leader of the Long family clenched his teeth and pointed a spear at the sky again. A golden ray of light flashed and suddenly disappeared into the sky. Bang! Long Ben army, kill them all. Roar! The golden light stirred up a commotion between heaven and earth. At this time, a spatial crack that was enough to make everyone's jaws drop suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. The spatial crack that was tens of thousands of zhong long tore the sky apart. The moment the curtain-like sky opened up, everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 24:13. Brother Feihong, Wu Qing is late. From the crack in space, a ferocious and savage aura surged out. Upon closer inspection, one would see Merciless West standing on top of the crack with bloodshot eyes. He raised his head slightly, and a domineering aura spread out for thousands of li. Boom, boom. Following that, terrifying roars of demonic beasts could be heard. In an instant, the demon-subduing sect seemed to have been rejuvenated. Demonic chi filled the entire area, and the atmosphere became extremely dense. There were over 100 demonic beasts. There were also countless martial artists eyeing them covetously. Various beast emperors shot cold gazes at the crowd. "Brother Wu Qing, Chi Feihong's blood-stained eyes were filled with hot tears. His heart was filled with warmth like a volcano erupting as he screamed hysterically. It's the reinforcements. We're saved. Oh my God. Did sect leader Su send them? So many martial artists and demonic beasts. We're saved. We're saved. Furious roars erupted from the throats of all the soldiers. Their eyes were filled with joy as they looked up at the sky. This dense crowd of people was like a heavenly army descending from the heavens. In an instant, Merciless West's arrival seemed to have pulled all the demon-subduing sect members out of the desert. Joy, anger, excitement, and all sorts of complicated emotions flashed across their faces. Their fists were clenched tightly as they roared towards the sky. The people who were filled with the will to die erupted once again. The surging battle intent turned into clouds in the sky. Millions of gazes were filled with passion, and the sound wave shattered the heavens and earth. Sect leader, we're saved. Looking at the sudden turn of events, Qi Jiuzhen was so happy that he almost fainted. Tears filled his eyes as he nodded heavily. Instantly, Merciless West leaped into the air, leading the millions of soldiers out of the crack and into the depths of the sky. The void was desolate, and the sky was dark. Everyone knew that this was a pleasant surprise that came from the jaws of death. The gigantic demonic beasts bared their fangs and brandished their claws. Their scales opened and closed. Countless cultivators filled the sky. Millions of powerful auras stood together, their eyes trembling as they looked at the sky. How could this be? How could this be? The cultivators of the Dragon Clan narrowed their eyes and looked at the millions of powerful figures. Their hearts sank and their faces turned pale. They remained silent. What should we do? Someone from the demon-subduing sect is here again. What else can we do? Run. Don't tell me you want to die with the Long family. We were just caught at the last minute. What are we doing here? Run. At this time, the millions of evil rogue cultivators were already trembling in fear. How could they still find a trace of fighting spirit? They all swallowed their saliva and did not dare to fight again. Bastards, get back here. The leader of the Long clan had already lost his cool and indifferent expression. By now, the sect of demons subduing and their reinforcements numbered 7 to 8 million. Once the rogue cultivators left, what use would these Iron Pagoda dragon soldiers, which had the combat power of hundreds of thousands of people, be? In an instant, the machine-like Long Ben army began to panic. At this moment, a faint voice came from the void. It was Merciless West's voice. Brothers, what should we do if we meet the Long family? Like a god looking down on the world, Merciless West's killing intent soared the moment he saw the Long family. Kill. What should we do if we meet the Long family members who want to escape? Catch them and kill them. Those bastards who helped the Long family. What should we do if they refuse to realize their mistakes? Kill them all. The demon-subduing sect spirits were high as they roared to the sky. The demon-subduing sect had returned to the hands of everyone. This was their home ground. Like a volcano, the majestic sound waves swept through the sky. Wave after wave of light shot out and gathered together. It was enough to move the sky and the sun. Bang, bang. At this time, those rogue cultivators who were preparing to escape were scared out of their wits. They were already surrounded by the 4 armies. The insufferably arrogant Long family army no longer moved in unison. Their eyes were trembling, and their faces were filled with fear. The leader said in a trembling voice, "Merciless West, you dare to kill me?" Merciless West sneered. In the vast sky, hundreds of voices were like a storm, instantly extinguishing the Long family's momentum. Merciless West waved his hand. "Then open your dog eyes and see if I dare or not. Leave no one from the Long family alive. Kill them all." "You," the leader roared. "If millions of people were charging at you, even if you were a top expert, you would still be scared out of your wits." Very quickly, under the gaze of Merciless West, the army that looked like they could swallow the sun and moon roared. Dazzling light shrouded the land, and they enjoyed the pleasure of slaughtering to their heart's content. Towards the Long family, towards these rogue cultivators. No one would show mercy. Boom! In an instant, heaven and earth trembled. Tens of thousands of figures appeared. Instantly, the entire sky was filled with dazzling light. The vast heaven and earth energy was like a flood, swallowing everyone. Kill everyone from the Long family. Boom! High up in the sky, a thunderous explosion sounded. Heaven and earth trembled. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. In the darkness, it was as if the demon-subduing sect had turned into a chaotic world. Everything turned into nothingness. The space shattered. The Long family and rogue cultivators disappeared in the sky, never to appear again. Today is the day that the Bawang sect and the Long family declare war. Su-yi is born, and the world is under his rule. Hearing Merciless West's words, the eyes of all the disciples present shone brightly. They were extremely excited. Raising their hands, they shone brightly. Bang, bang. Following that, the sounds of explosions continued to spread throughout the demon-subduing sect. The terrifying commotion finally calmed down amidst the shock of countless living beings. In the sky, Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy were already treating the injured Qi Feihong and Qi Dongjue. Because he had been staying in Su Yi's Chaos Yuan Ancient Bell all year round, Qi Feihong's physical body and soul strength were far superior to Qi Dongjue's. After the spiritual liquid entered his body, a vast amount of energy turned into life force to protect his heart. Soon, Qi Feihong opened his turbid eyes. "Since when did you become so brave?" Merciless West shook her head and smiled bitterly. However, she was extremely proud of herself. Qi Feihong's mouth trembled. He looked around weakly. When he realized that everything had been settled, his eyes trembled. He was extremely excited. After being with that kid for so long, it's easy to be impulsive. Qi Feihong said softly, "When that kid comes out, I'll definitely drag him to you and make him apologize to you, who said that the demon-subduing sect is filled with lowly people." Impermanence Fairy said softly. This time, the demon-subduing sect had completely changed everyone's impression of them. This also meant that the situation in the Sky Barbarian continent was changing. When Qi Feihong heard Su Yi's name, he struggled to get up and looked at everyone. "That brat, is he all right?" Immediately, Merciless West told Qi Feihong the news from the Myriad Sword Alliance. Everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. Now that the situation had reached its most critical point, Qi Feihong looked into the distance and said softly, "I wonder how Yutian Palace is doing right now." "Yeah, that's a tough battle." Merciless West narrowed her eyes. Her battle intent suddenly gathered. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.